presentation here, College Admissions 101, which would we'll go through the slide. Now, college admission, there are basically 4 major components to it, getting into college. The numbers, 1, the passion, the letters of recommendations, and the personality of the child. Now, I divided the content into 4 so that to help us in the narrative, so that we don't get lost in it. The first thing I want to say is that parents need to educate themselves. You need to spend time. What you don't pay for now, you will pay for later on down the line. So the most important thing that I learned quickly was that I had a lot of educating. I had to educate myself on the process. How quickly is this, does this process start? And I realized that the process actually starts from 9th grade, which is the first thing, your grades and test scores when it comes to your admission. Now, the ninth grade, your transcript for the whole of high school is what will basically determine, of course, your GPA and your ranking and how you get into college. Now, in all schools, you are more often than not, you're going to be compared with the resources available to you in that school. So when admission officers want to look at your transcript, they are going to compare you with the opportunities available to you. If you are going to, for instance, my son went to Bowie High School, they are not going to compare the resources available to him, the classes, the opportunities available to him in Bowie High School to Eleanor Roosevelt in Greenbelt. So the first thing admission officers want to do is kind of like look at the resources available to you in your high school. And to what degree, to what extent did you take advantage of the resources available to you in that school? They don't expect that if something is not available to you in that school, that you are going to have to go out to go and get it. There are other situations like that, which we might get to later. So as a parent, what I started doing was that from ninth grade, I would monitor your grades. Almost every day, I would go on School Max and look at what's going on. To some degree, I was a nuisance to my kids, but it was a good nuisance. I would monitor the grades. I would check, there's this assignment that hasn't been submitted. What's going on here? And I followed through that process. Your GPA, I would monitor it. I would know when the progress report is coming out. When the progress report comes out, I look at it. And I know when the first quarter would end, I was okay. I tell them, I don't want you to be chasing an A. You must start off from the beginning of the year with an A. And you know that as you go down the quarter, it makes it a lot more difficult for you if you are not already at an A to get an A. So we start that process early. So I don't wait until the 3rd quarter of 9th or 10th grade. Say, Kilo Day, what's going on here? So we start that process early. Now the 9th grade, basically, the child is just coming from middle school and stepping into high school. So there's still a learning, there tends to be a learning curve because they are just getting into high school. But as the parent, you want to know the classes that are available to the child. And if there's any opportunity for the child, if the child is capable to take an AP class, even as at that time, if it is available. An easy AP class. AP class are advanced placement classes. Now, the 10th grade, which is the next timeline, moves us to setting the foundation for the college application. Your GPA, your transcript, how rigorous your course load has been is what is going to determine to a very large extent how competitive you are for colleges. Because these colleges, everybody wants a good student. Everybody wants the next Bill Gates. Everybody wants the next Mike Zuckerberg. So everybody wants the next Obama in their schools. So, but the only way it's difficult to determine the success of a child that's still in 10th or 11th grade or 12th grade. So what they would usually go by is, how is this student taking advantage of the opportunities there? You know, you can have a 4.0 GPA just taking easy classes. You know, you just take the regular classes. But here is this other student in that school in 10th grade, you have the opportunity of taking 3 AP classes are available to you, and you didn't take any. And somebody else takes one of those advanced placement classes. Yeah, the person might not get an A, but gets a B. But at least that student is pushing him, is pushing him or herself. So how rigorous your course load is, how you are taking advantage of the opportunities available to you, how competitive you are in your class really goes a long way. Most admission officers, because I just wanted to understand the process, I did a lot of research, went through to understand how some of these people think with my kids and all that. I tried that. What I did was, if we're thinking of a particular college, I will go down and I'll do some research about that college and what the admission, officers think and how they look at the transcript. Most colleges would give a pass on the 9th grade. They will say because the kids are still trying to find their feet. Somewhere like Stanford, for instance, would start really paying attention. In fact, Stanford will recalculate your GPA, and they will recalculate it from 10th grade. 10th, 11th, 12th, okay. If there was a learning curve, that learning curve should have been over by now. This is now 10th, from 10th, 11th grade, they would probably start calculating your GPA. So 10th grade would really set the foundation, although the foundation could have been set by 9th grade, because you want to have a perfect GPA as possible. Then your test prep should start, I would say, early in 11th grade. Your test prep should start early in, should have started, maybe late 10th grade, but prefer, late 10th grade. Your goal should be to, because right now there's an issue with test. Some colleges are going test optional right now because of the coronavirus and all that happened in the last two academic, for this year and last year, they were going, which was the year my daughter was applying to college. By 11th grade, she already had her test scores. So by the time coronavirus hit and all that, it wasn't even an issue for us whether for her to be looking for where to take the her SAT or ACT. Now, regarding the test preparation, there are two things. You have to study each of the tests. ACT is designed a lot more towards what has been, taught in school and all that, but it appears to be a fast-paced test. SAT is a lot more kind of like out-of-the-box thinking, and you have a lot more time. So you need to find out which test exactly suits your child, because kids do well. Some do well on ACT and some will prefer the SAT. You need to find out which one exactly, suits your child, and then start early to start preparing them. Most of the test preparation places that we used would first of all give you what they call a diagnostic test. They'll give you a diagnostic test to show you exactly where your child is and in the process. So, and then from there, based on that, they will design a program for you. Now, by the, excuse me, I think I just went, 11th grade, hold on, I need to minimize this so I can see this. Okay, in the 11th grade, you need to really, really be challenging yourself. Really, really, because that's your last best opportunity to really show the admission officers that you're really capable, you can handle the college level, work in that 11th grade. Take as many AP classes as you can. Then I want to here, numbers aren't everything. And what I mean by numbers aren't everything is that depending on the college you really want to go to, first, because I believe that every child, this country, there's so many opportunities, everyone will get into a college. Every average student will get into a college. That's not even an issue. The more competitive the college you want to go is, the more you have to do. And that's where numbers would not just be enough. You can have a perfect GPA, you can have a 1600 SAT or ACT score. That would not necessarily get you into an Ivy League. Some of these schools can fill 4, 5, 6, 7 classes with students who have perfect, GPAs or test scores. So it's a lot more than that. While there are some schools that just a high GPA, your GPA and your test score alone is enough to give you a merit scholarship. So depending on where the college your child is looking at, that's what determines the kind of premium you pay to the numbers. Even, of course, generally you need great scores. Now we go to activities, which is the next most important thing that they would probably look at. It's been said generally that the activities in and outside the classroom is very, very important, in and outside the classroom. And I know I was told this too when I started with my first son. Let him be a well-rounded student. Oh, he has to be a well-rounded student. So he's doing so many things. He's in band, he's in this, he's in that, he's in everywhere. Just trying to be that well-rounded student that everybody talks about. But then I listened to some admission officers and did some research. And I realized that if you look at the screen, if everyone is like that orange dot there, what's the difference? Where an admission officer has, 1,000 spots and maybe like 20,000 students have applied. And they're all well-rounded. So he needs that student that sticks out. And that is where this particular one comes to bear. That's why you see this particular red ball that has a spike that shows that differentiating thing about that student. And that spike is going to be a narrative that will probably run through the student's activities, run through that student's essays, run through his interviews that he probably would be able to talk about. Now here is an example of a student with a lot of activities. He's in French Honor Society, editor, dance, volunteer, tutor, orchestra, school board, liaison, lacrosse, teens, church involvement, congressional campaign, volunteer, debate captain. So he's everywhere. He's everywhere. An admission officer looking at this, how do I know this kid? Who is this kid? What's this kid's interest? He appears to be jack of all trades. He's almost into everything. What sets this student apart? But then, as the parent, if you settle down with the parent, you can see that, okay, there's certain things here that shows a pattern regarding this particular student. This student, you know, is concentrating on certain things. Okay, so political editor, worked on a presidential campaign or, you know, congressional campaign as a volunteer. Oh, also debate captain, school board liaison. Okay. Obviously, somebody who's interested in politics, in public service or something. So when that student is putting together the activities, there are certain things he's going to prioritize because he tells a story. He tells a consistent story that, because more often than not, the person interviewing you, depending if you're going to a school that interviews, those Ivy Leagues with interview, would not get to see your transcript, would not get to see any of this. So the admission officer has to make a determination about who this student is based on all these activities and on the SSC. This particular student right now, we can see, has a spike. He's not just a well, rounded person. We can see where the interest is. So it's important for the parent to start looking at the student, start finding out, your child, where are your interests? What do you really enjoy doing? And pay a lot of attention, put premium into it, look for more opportunities out there for that child to get engaged in. Now, the next slide, you can see here are the elements of a spike. The person has passion in it. When a child has passion in something, you don't need to push. You don't need to push. You don't need to push. My son was into football. I didn't like American football. So that night you could be banging your head against each other. I don't like it. I tried to frustrate the guy initially. I would not, it was time for him to get his medicals that would allow him for this thing. His mom and I would frustrated him out of it. He couldn't get it. The second year, this boy carried his gear from the house and walked all the way, carrying his gear in hot sun to school himself. And went around, made sure he got his medicals himself. He had the passion for it. And once we saw it, we just, followed suit. Then in those things that will form a spike, we need to encourage them to show leadership, get leadership positions in school. In school, if you're in debate, try and be the captain. Try and be something, try and show leadership qualities there. And of course, show commitment. Don't do it in 9th grade, and then by the time you get 10th grade, you are doing something else. 11th grade, you are not even interested anymore. Show commitment to it. Then the final one is the letters of recommendation that will be required. Now, the letters of recommendation will usually be from 2 teachers from either 10th, 11th, or 12th grade. Preferably, what I've noticed is that they prefer the ones from 11th grade. And now 11th grade, because it is a lot closer to the time they are trying to make a decision. You don't want something that is too far back. They want something that is a lot more closer to the time the admission officer is trying to make a decision. So, because your application is probably going to be sent off in the first quarter of your 12th grade. So the teachers that had you in 11th grade are usually the best because they just had you recently. Now, these letters of recommendation are very, very, very important. They are very, very, very important. Well, once I discovered, I didn't know before, when my first child was going, just, okay, hey, go and meet that your teacher, let him write letter of recommendation, it's okay. No, 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 no. You have to make sure it's a student that it's a teacher that likes that student, one. Two, it's a teacher that you did well in the class. It's also in a class that teacher can say something about you apart from your academics. Apart from your academics. How you are with other students, that you're a nice person, that you help others in class, that you are the kind of student that others want to be around. How you are not just there, just getting an A in the class, just keeping quiet, listening to the lecture. You do your assignments, and you get an A in the class. I mean, if that teacher is going to write anything about, say, yeah, he's a good student, he gets A's in the class and all that. There are discussions you are involved in. Build a relation. You have to do a little bit of, I'm sorry to say that you have to suck up a little to these teachers at this particular point in time. You have to make them your friends. You have to make them your friends. Some of the letters of recommendations that some teachers wrote for my daughter, I could almost frame it because of how granular the details were. They will give anecdotal, experiences, things that they have experienced with her in class. One even said that, he was walking behind her one day, and a student had fallen down. I think the books had fallen down, and that my daughter was there packing the books and everything to help assisting that student. Something as small as that gives the admission officer that, okay, this is the kind of person we want in our school. This kind of person that would be willing to make other students better, to assist other students. So generally, I think then the final one, the essays. Essays, you demonstrate your writing skill, show personality, and develop your spike. During the essays is the time that the student really has the opportunity to show who you are, to tell your narrative about exactly who you are. Show personality. There are some colleges that will ask for multiple essays. Those colleges are actually very, very good because they give you a lot more opportunity to tell a story about yourself. And I would always advise that, start writing these essays as early as possible, or just start putting things down, as many things as you can about yourself. Have a brag sheet about yourself, and all that. And don't be shy about talking about yourself and about things that you have done. During the essays, develop your spike. Now, scholarships. This is the one that I learned late and I paid dearly for it. Scholarships, I started telling my students, my children that, look, every A you get is a step towards a scholarship. The example that I would normally give them is this. I'll say, look, if I had this discussion with my kids, I'll tell them, if you don't work hard right now, because the way this country is structured in a way to put you on a track of debt very, very early. It's designed that way. And was, designed that way, especially when Black people started, trying to get into the system. So it's designed to burden you with debt early. So you need to start every A you get, you are setting yourself up to go to school without a student loan, without having to borrow money. And the way it is, it's funny that from getting good grades, you are more likely you will get great scholarships. And from getting great scholarships, you're probably going to end up also with a better GPA and get a better starting salary. In fact, there are some schools that based on your great grades will just, outright give you a full ride and give you merit scholarships. Now, more competitive colleges like the Ivy Leagues, I don't give merit scholarships. They don't. Somebody wanted to argue with me on that. I said, no, they don't give merit scholarships. Because everyone there is smart. Everybody that got in is smart. So they don't give merit scholarships. What they give is financial aid. Is financial aid. We need to understand there's a difference between merit scholarship. Merit scholarship is not dependent on how much your parents make or anything and all that. It's all simply based on how good that student was. Had a great GPA, had great test scores. They really want this child in the school. That's why it's called merit scholarship. Deserved it. Financial aid, on the other hand, is a function of what's the income in that family, what do they make, can they afford to pay? That's why it's called aid. That's why it's called aid. We weren't particularly successful with outside scholarships as such. We tried, which is an option, and we are still trying it, to get outside scholarships. Some of them have a cap based on the income in the household, and there are different criteria about that, but we weren't particularly successful with outside scholarships. However, what I discovered is this. That's why I said I'm not an expert on this. I'm talking from my own personal experience. What I discovered was this. When my son got into college, one of them, he was in broadcast. When he got in there, they didn't give him a lot of aid in the first semester. When I saw, later on I can explain why we picked that particular school over other schools. They didn't give him a lot of aid. So what we did was I told him, man, this is too expensive. You have to buckle up and make sure you get great grades in your first semester. So he got very good grades in his first semester, and we approached them. By the time we approached them and they recalculated the scholarship that they will give us, because a lot of these schools have scholarships there, and they have different endowments, different people that would give them money. And they gave him enough scholarships, so much so that it was better for him to go to that college than to go to University of Maryland. It became way cheaper for him. So even if you don't get the kind of scholarship from the onset, if you are determined, you get great grades, you could still approach them for scholarships. Praise the Lord.
Hallelujah.
Thank you so much for that. That was very informative, especially for a lot of us that have no clue as to how to go about this. We have if anyone have any questions, we have like, we can have some questions right now, maybe about 5 questions. Please feel free, raise your hand.
Okay, Temi, can you unmute yourself?
Good evening. About teacher recommendations, you said it's better to get teachers from 11th grade, but how would you recommend going about getting them if your 11th and 10th grade were virtual and you didn't have the opportunity to build those relationships with your teachers?
Okay. I think my daughter is here, and she would want to answer that question because she just went through that process. Okay.
So my junior year was half in person, half online. But for people that are, if you're in 10th grade or 11th grade right now, one thing, like if you want to make relationships with your teachers and have them get to know you, you should go to their office hours. A lot of teachers will allow students to come and ask them questions or get extra help. So going to office hours really helps because the teachers get to know you better. It's a lot harder to connect with teachers over Zoom. But if you show the teacher that you're making an effort to really understand the material, you participate in their class, your camera's on, you're always like engaged in the discussion, you're asking questions, the teacher will write you a better recommendation letter. And when it comes to, asking the teacher, you just tell the teacher, I enjoyed your class this year. I learned so much. I feel like you know me well as a student. Could you please write me a recommendation letter? You always make sure to send up follow-up emails to say thank you and things like that. But with the online setting, it's really important that you go the extra mile to show your teacher that you really care about that class. And that's kind of how you can get a good recommendation letter, even if you're not in in-person school.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, and to add to that, what she left something out, what we also did was that there are programs out there that would require teachers to write you recommend. This is kind of like, Niger sense now, so pay attention. Pay attention. This is Niger. Now, there are programs out there that will ask teachers, that will ask you for recommendations from your teachers. So what you can do is to try and get a feel of what a teacher thinks about you. Do you understand what I'm saying? By already asking them for letters of recommendations to those places. This is not your college now. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's kind of like gives you a preview. It gives you a preview of what this teacher, because your letters of recommendation, you are not going to see them.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying? You are not going to see your letters of recommendation. So if there are programs or things out there that would ask for recommendations from your teachers, go and ask a couple of them, especially if there will be ones that you might get to see ahead of time, or that they will tell you to bring. You understand what I'm saying? So yeah. You kind of like get a preview of, okay, this is how this teacher thinks of me. And if it's a very competitive college, you don't want a teacher just saying, oh, he's a good student. No, you want a teacher to say he's one of the best students that I've had. I enjoyed working with this student. You understand? Yeah. Something that would kind of like elevate you in that above the others in your class.
Thank you for that, sir.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions?
Yeah, bro, Adewale.
Yes.
Okay.
I would like the speaker to talk more about ACT and Psat, the difference between the two and the requirements.
Okay. You know what? I took JAM. So let me get somebody that took both.
Okay.
That took both. We had, she tried both early, so for us to determine which one she preferred. So Anna, you want to go ahead?
Yeah. So I took the SAT and the ACT, but when I was deciding which test I wanted to focus on, so I didn't actually study for the SAT because that was the test I decided not to focus on. When I was studying between the ACT and the SAT, you have to look at where your strengths lie. So the ACT is a quick test. The sections have a lot of questions and you have very little time. So you have to be able to think quickly. So that's the challenge with that test. but the material is a little bit easier, but you really have to be able to go quick. So if you're someone that can work quickly and think on your feet, that test is better for you. The SAT is a bit of a longer test, but the material is, you have more time, but the material is more challenging. So if you need more time to work on the problems, and the SAT might be better. Another thing between the ACT and the SAT is the only way to really know which test works best for you is to take practice tests. So if you go online, you can find a free practice ACT and you can find a free practice SAT, and take both, take them timed and see which test you prefer, which test is easier for you. So when I did that, I preferred the ACT. So I spent a summer focusing on the ACT. I worked on the ACT. I studied it a lot, and I was able to do well on the ACT. Then I decided just out of the blue to try the SAT because my school was offering it for free. And I was able to take the skills that I learned on the ACT and transfer it to the SAT and still do well. But focusing on one of the tests really makes it a lot easier to get a higher score.
Yeah, but it's important to first of all do a diagnostic on both to get a feel of how both the tests are. That something we did for Anna was there was this website called Prep Scholar that we used. Prep Scholar, they will when they give the diagnostic, when we saw that it was ACT, they also do for SAT. They would after you take the diagnostic, they would notice where your weak points are. So they will calibrate the questions that they'll be giving you, the practice questions that they'll be giving you will be calibrated towards those weak points. And they'll be sending the parents an update of the progress of the child every week.
Okay.
They'll be sending a progress report every week. Okay, this child has mastered this particular principle. And you can always go there and you see all the principles that you need to master to get a very good score. So you can check, okay, she's advanced here, she's still just average here. Oh, she has mastery here, mastery here. The goal is to get mastery in all the the different categories of the test. So it's one that will keep helping you, and then you would get a lot of full practice tests outside that you can take to measure your progress.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that. I want to use this chance to welcome our General Overseer of Kingdom Ambassador Christ Center at Laura. Welcome, sir. We're glad you're here. So the next person I'm going to be introducing will be Mr. Wilson Adewale. Please let us try and limit our time to maybe about 30 minutes because we do have a couple more speakers. And at the end, we'll have a lot more time for questions and answers. So Mr. Wilson Adewale is the founding member and the current CEO of Stream Alliance LLC, an information security consulting company. He has over 27 years combined experience in training, engineering, project management, information security, real estate development, and mortgage origination and international education consulting. He was in the past CEO of Bunview Mortgage Corporation and president of the Association of African Brokers and Lenders in the DC area. He is constantly involved with and speaks regularly on infrastructure development and capacity building in the construction, mortgage, and real estate industries, both in the United States and overseas. He has helped subvert many small businesses. Mr. Wilson was a pioneer pastor of Caleb Crew, the teenage church at RCCG Jesus House, DC in the US, and currently assists in a volunteer capacity. He was also the program director for the MTN Football Scholar Initiative, which placed several talented young Nigerian student athletes in the American colleges and prep schools. Pastor Wilson is a passionate speaker on young adults teenage issues and university college admissions with special emphasis on scholarship opportunities in the immigrant communities. He regularly features as guest speakers at several nonprofit organizations that center on people development and motivating young leaders to take on challenges. Pastor Wilson has a master's degree in international finance from the University of Maryland, University College, and a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from the University of Lagos. He has received several awards of selfless service. He's married with children and spends a lot of time mentoring young adults and teenagers. Please help me welcome Pastor Wilson.
You're welcome.
Evening. Good
You're
evening.
welcome.
Thank you for the very warm introduction. I appreciate it. I want to thank Pastor Abe for the invitation. I want to say I appreciate it very much, and I don't take it for granted, especially when we have a lot of young people that really need information to excel in this country. From my experience, I had the last speaker speak, Mr. Leshmogo, and I thank you for your experience as a parent. I think it's very important for people to hear from the parent's perspective. From my own experience, I have the opportunity of being both a parent, both a parent, also a mentor, and also an educationist, all in one in my various travels in the last 20-something years of looking over the, watching over young people and seeing them grow. And I became a beneficiary of the fact that some of what I was teaching, my children benefited from it over a period of time. And so I don't take it for granted. I started about maybe 25 years ago, learning about college admissions and education and children, because I was just interested. I'm a little bit more inquisitive. I'm very inquisitive, and I started asking questions in church at Jesus' house. Then I had a friend whose child was going to a prep school, and I was wondering, what do they do there? What's the prep school? What is this? What is that? So it was in my continuous questions that eventually got me. Then I became the pastor of Caleb Crew, which is a teenage church, and I was able to see other young people. And by the time my kids started to get to be teenagers, they started to benefit from what I was teaching. So today it gives me pleasure. I want to say welcome. I want to say thank you, Pastor Abe, for organizing this, because I'm telling you, it is very important. We don't do enough of this. And I'll tell you, in my presentation, I'm going to, hopefully I can share my screen right now. Let me just see if I can share. Okay, excellent. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So now I'm going to start real briefly. I know I have less than 30 minutes, so I'll be quick. And hopefully, I just want to generate enough interest in all of you to understand what it is, achieving success in academic pursuits. It's a very, very important goal that you set early in life. And like I said, I had the last speaker, and I really appreciate a lot of what he said. So now, who are the actors in this whole scenario? Let's say we have a play. Let's say we have a screenplay, a film, a movie. Who are the actors? The actors are, number one, the students. Very important part of this movie. Then the parents, another important factor. Then the high school counselors, the teachers, then the extracurricular activity, the church, the coaches, church guardians, social workers. These are the people that are important in this whole film of life. It takes a village to raise a child. So it is very important for you to understand that all these people play a very important role in making a child that will be very successful in life. It is my desire, my hope, that some of you on this call, in fact, some of you in this area, they will become the leaders of this country. That we had President Obama being of African descent. He will be the first, but he will not be the last. That there's perhaps some of you will become the leaders in this community. They'll become governors, they'll become senators, they'll become judges, that they will become directors in different agencies. You will not be a one-off like we've seen. So that's my desire. And guess what? And everything is possible. The Bible says with God, all things are possible. And I want to let you know that it starts from your thinking. What are you thinking about? How you want to get there? It's not a big deal. I'll tell you some of my journey, and perhaps you can learn one or two things from there. So the things to consider, and some of the last speakers mentioned some of these things. When you're trying to plan for college, standardized testing, your high school results, your GPA, the rigorosity of your curriculum, your essays, your extracurricular activities is very important. Your teacher recommendations. So a lot of these things, the last speaker mentioned it. Some of the things that he I want you to also understand your resume also. And then I'll talk about prep schools and then your college visit. Your college visit used to be a very critical part of the whole process. And I'll tell you what it means to actually have a college visit. So, so now let's talk about, I'm going to give information that is a little bit broad and you may not understand everything now. Remember now, just my research shows that only maybe about 10 or 15% of African immigrant parents in our community actually went to high school here. Very small number, maybe 10 to 20%. Just do some quick research. I mean, I'm not, don't quote me, but it's just asking questions here and there. Just lets me know that only about 10% of African parents went to high school here. So they may understand. Even for the people that went to college here, that's a higher number of people that went to college here. Of immigrant parents, but still going to college and going to high school are two separate things. You may not understand a lot of things. Now, look at the average income in our community here, maybe from 80,000 for a joint family, maybe mother and father, a joint family, maybe like from 80 to 150,000. And if for a single family, it's less, maybe that's like 80,000 for a single, approximately, just numbers there. I like you to put things in perspective because I want to teach both the parents and the students also the way that they should think forward. Now, the average tuition for a 4-year private college, it's this, about $60,000 in 2020, approximately. Again, it ranges, and I'll give you some numbers. Remember now, the United States has the second highest number of colleges in the world. It has about 4,000 universities and colleges in America. There are 4,000 approximately, a little bit more or less. Each year they go up and down a little bit. I think India has the highest or something, but America has like the second highest. But America is the most sought after place for college in the world. I'm telling you because I want to build a story, understand what I'm trying to say. And also the top 200 universities and colleges in America, in the whole world, the top 200. Out of that, America has at least almost 60% of that list. The top 200 colleges in the world. You can Google it, you can do everything. America has about 60% of that list. That means America has about 120 of the top 200 schools in the world. Then, of course, you have in England, you have in Germany, you have in Russia, you have Spain, France, and all the other countries. But America has a bulk of it. America is the #1 destination for the top colleges in the world. And you understand as we go forward, and you understand why is this case and why you have to be different. I heard the gentleman talk about spiking. Why do you have to spike yourself for you to have an opportunity to get a great education? Like he said, we have 4,000 colleges, so everybody can get into any college. That's the truth. You can, with some decent results, you can get into any college. Now, the average tuition for a 4-year public college in this area, it's about, your public college is about $23,000, maybe about $92,000 for a 4-year college. And for a 4-year public university out of state, if you're out of state, for example, you are in Maryland and you want to attend a school in North Carolina, that's considered out of state. So averagely, you're looking about $35,000 for tuition for that. Out of state is more. Let me tell you something. Let me just give you a few of the differences. Number one, if you go into a public school, and I will tell you what a public school is. A public school education, if you go to a public school, if you're in state, that means you're resident in the state, you pay what you call you pay the minimum tuition for that. If you are out of state, let's say you are from another state coming to this state, you pay out of state tuition. If you're international student, that's another one, you pay international student fees. But in a private college, a private university, you pay the same thing. It doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, everybody pays the same thing. That's the difference. Again, some of these things some people may understand, some people may not, but please ask any questions as you go along. Now, this is just from the US News and US News and World Report. The average tuition in 2020, tuition alone, I'll tell you what comprises of a college education. It's 3 things. Well, at least 3 major things. There's some other ones. The tuition, the room and board, the tuition, the room and the board, meaning that the tuition, your room, and your food, meals. So those are the 3 major components. Of course, there's other things. You have your laptop, your other fees here and there. So but this is just the tuition alone. This is from the US News, okay? So this is average. So now, check what I told you before. I told you it talks about $60,000. By the time you add $35,000 for a private school, and then tuition, room and board is another $25,000, it's like $12,000, depends on the school. That's at $60,000. So you have your $60,000, and this is average. This is by no means the cheapest. This is like just average. All right. So now, let's move on to next. Now, let's talk about the American high school. A lot of you are familiar with the American high school system, at least the students. The parents may not be familiar, but the students at least. The tuition is free for American high school. But if you're going to go to a prep school, and some of the prep schools around here, maybe it's Georgetown Prep, for example, the school fee is about $65,000 for a prep school, for a high school, which is a prep school. That's what we call prep school, where you get preparatory education, preparing for college. But they're very premium education, and there's a whole lot of, I teach a whole lot on the prep school and what it takes to get into one of those ones. But there are a few around here. You know, you have a Sidwell French, you have a Bullish, you have a Georgetown Prep, you have you know, there are a few of them around here. They're pretty expensive. But what do you get from a prep school education? Again, I'm not going to dwell on that today. I just want to teach you just basic, give you general knowledge. Now, there's difference between the campuses of both schools. You understand? A public school is born by the state, so it's free. So wherever is dependent on where you live. Sometimes, if it's a sought after school, like for example, Roosevelt, in the Roosevelt in Greenbelt, sought after schools, so they will do an entrance exam to get people from out of the area to come to get into, they give you an exam. So, but public school is free. Prep school is not free. Then there's a private school. You have the Catholic schools. The Catholics have, just in America alone, the Catholic institution has about 500 universities. Remember I told you that like 4,000 universities in America? The Catholic school has about 500 universities, and they all range from the top grade to the lowest. Places like maybe say Georgetown, you maybe create Georgetown, maybe Boston College, maybe Villanova, you know, maybe the top Catholic, like Notre Dame, the top private Catholic universities. Those are the ones, you understand? And they have 500 of them. So in between those ones, I'll tell you what it is. But they have high schools also. The Catholic Church has a lot of high schools in this area. For example, they have you know, a lot of them in this area, and I'm sure you can Google them. Some of you probably go to those private Catholic schools. There's a prep school, the private schools, and then of course the public schools. So I just want you to understand a little bit of differences in all those things. Now, just a little bit of a fourth article. What does it mean to attend some of these schools? That's what you see: tiny classes, individualized cases. You have access to a lot more educational materials. But again, I'm not going to spend time on that. So I'll talk again. You talk about the importance of maybe having a prep school education and what it does. Now, but the simple statistic, just for you to know. Again, I'm not going to spend too much time. But one of the things that you understand is this: as you prepare for your child's education in the future, one of the things you want to understand is this: where is he going? Where is she going? What kind of student do you have? There's some students that are extraordinarily brilliant, and because of that, you want to give them opportunities. And let me tell you something. One of the things that, especially for parents, I'm talking to you, one of the things that you understand is you have a lot of opportunities in this country. You do have. But the worst thing to do is to have a closed mouth. A closed mouth, like some of my brother used to say, is a closed destiny. You speak, you ask questions, ask. A lot of opportunities, a lot of schools here that people go to here. They don't pay the school fee. They don't pay the tuition. You know why? Because some of the things that your students do, your kids do. Remember the gentleman I was talking about his child and saying if you make A, put it this way, whatever your child does is reduction in your school fees. So if you haven't saved any school fees for them, what they do now, how rigorous and how well they do what they do is taking money from is putting money in your pocket when they want to go to college. That's the same thing with prep schools. If your child is very gifted in some specific areas, they can get admission into any of these prep schools here. Let me give you an example. We used to live in Bowie about 20-something years ago, maybe like you know, and my kids went to this school, this elementary school in Bowie. Then one of them went to funny, I've forgotten a lot of those names. It's funny. Samuel Ogu Middle School. My son went there. My firstborn. That was in maybe 2003 or 4 or something like that. And then from there we moved, but they were involved in a lot of activities. My children were involved in a lot of activities. And when I say activities, because I started doing a lot of research, and I got to understand that if the kids were involved with something apart from the academics, in addition to the academic was not an option. You must be very, very on top of your academics. So that's not an option. But picking something else, I saw that the colleges were interested in knowing a rounded student. What does it take to a child that can do something else apart from the academics? Because when you want to get into those top high caliber schools, like he said, you have to spike. There's something that has to spike in you. Something must be different because everybody else is good. So what is your difference? So, and I moved from Bowie to Montgomery County then, And I paid 3 times what my house was in Louis, what I paid in Montgomery County, but it was only because of the facilities that they offered me then for the schools. And I went there and I was able to see, and in later years, how I benefited from what I did, in the fact that my wife and I, we decided, and our kids benefited from premium education. A couple of my kids went to Bullies, the other one went to Good Counsel, and the scholarship that they offered there, were able to get a lot of scholarship because of the kids, not because of us. And but anyhow, that's enough said on that. Now, the American college system, I'll talk about the American college system. The American public university system, the public universities are large campuses, for example, University of Maryland, I think College Park has about maybe like 20 or 30,000 students or something like that. And they're research oriented, they're major choices. That's the difference. In a private university or private college, I'm going to use the name college and university interjected. I'm going to just relate them for you to understand that a lot of colleges make up a university sometimes, you understand? So college of this, college of that, college of that. But college is the university the way we say it back home. A lot of campus, smaller colleges, especially liberal arts colleges, they have small campus, small student population. They are student oriented. They have specific classes that they take. And it's called a liberal arts education. And the liberal arts education is something that when you can do your research, but it's understanding, it's a little bit of a difference when you go to a private liberal arts college, a public college, even for the same course that you do. A liberal arts education is very specific. For example, how will I say it? You learn, let me put it this way. I went to one of the private colleges a few years ago, and I found out, I did some research. About 5 of the students, one did in the College of Liberal Arts College, they did BSc Religious Studies, one did psychology, one did English, and all 5 of them, 5 different students, all of them they had different BScs, and all of them studied medicine. They all went to the Liberal Arts College. So the fact that you did religion, history, biology doesn't mean that you cannot be a science or a medical student. And that's what I'm trying to tell you. So don't be misled by just thinking, because you went to this class, So I just want you to understand that liberal arts education, very broad, very specific in the way that they teach. A little bit different. Smaller students, you could, in a class, some of the colleges, for example, went to, which college we went to in New York, only about 6, 7 in a class. So the teacher knows everybody. Professors have been there for years. They are tenured professors, meaning they've been there. They are not running after their job. Now, in a public school, on the other hand, you have a large campus, maybe a class of 200, 300, 400 people, so you may get lost in there. So you have to understand your students, where will they fit in, a small or a large campus? Those are things that you want to think. But anyway, we'll keep going on, and then hopefully, an Ivy League education. Now, there's 8 schools that make up the Ivy League. 8 schools. A lot of people don't understand that. I just want you to understand that the 8 schools make up the Ivy League schools. And if I can remember them, there's Harvard, the Yale, Princeton, Cornell, UPenn, Dartmouth, Columbia, Brown. Those are the schools that make up the Ivy League. So when you hear Ivy League, those are the 8 schools that make up the Ivy League. You can see them on the screen. Now, why is it that they are the standard for the premium education in this country and all over the world? When you say Ivy League, so but there's some schools who have as good an education like the Ivy Leagues, for example, like the MIT, the Stanford, Carnegie Mellon, and a lot of other schools that have the same quality of education as the Ivy Leagues. So the Ivy Leagues are seen as the top bracket. But of course, also, it is extremely difficult to get into them, but it's not impossible. You know why? Because a lot of students, a lot of our caliber of students in the community that we serve really can get into that school, but it's very, very, very tough, but they can get there. And I want you to dream today. If you haven't taken anything from me, dream that you can get there, and I'll tell you my story. Now, what I have in there, I know it's a little bit very hard to read, but this chart you see is the top 100 ranked students schools in the United States, ranked by tuition, ranked by the quality or the ranking of the college. So from the number 1 to number 100, these are the top 100 out of the 4,000 colleges I told you in America. And of course, it's a little bit small to fit everything in, but if you look at it here, maybe some of you may not be able to see some things, but anyway, let me just go further. I'll see the next slide. some of you may be able to see because I expanded that table. I want you to just understand one or two things. Talk about the cost of education. I want you to understand the cost of education. Look at here. I put yellow in some of the things that a lot of our students in this area go to. For example, George Washington is number 70, and the fees is $57,000 for the tuition. Okay, so that means the whole package is about $80,000 GW, and they're number 70. Look at Georgetown is number 24, and the school fee is $56,000. Okay, Yale is $55,000, and they're number 3. Wake Forest, okay, Villanova is number 46 at $56,000. Johns Hopkins is number 10 at $55,000. You see, they're all around in that same. This is tuition. By the time you add the room and board, it becomes a little bit more. MIT is number 3 at $54,000. Okay, NYU, Vanderbilt. These are students. Look at Harvard is number 2 at $52,000 approximately, and Princeton is number 1 college in the country at $52,000, approximately the same thing. Then look at the Rice University at number 17 at 49. Then College Park, that's what bringing at College Park is number 64, and it has 36,000. That is, of course, tuition is only $10,000. You see on the red, tuition for in-state is only $10,000. So look at Penn State University at 35,000, and then University of Pittsburgh. I just highlighted some of the schools that our children normally go to around here. Okay, so okay, now again, look at the most expensive schools a few years ago. Look at it. Some of you have never heard of some of these schools: Vassar College, Tufts, Trinity College, Oberlin, Amherst. You know, I have visited a lot of these schools because I used to travel a lot, and I used to travel to look for schools for students, prep schools, and colleges. So I've traveled to over 30 colleges around the country and prep schools. I've traveled to quite a bit of them because it's my interest also. I really want to go to the admission sessions and I see why can't minority students enrollment be higher in this school. So I go to understand and also to give information and to get information. So that's why. So these are some of the least cheapest schools in the country. Look at Berea College, Brigham Young, but there's some things about them. For example, Brigham Young University, for example, you have to be, I think you have to be a Mormon or you have to be in the church before you can get this kind of education. Some of them have specific, like Berea College, you walk in the school and then they give you the tuition as free, something like that. So a lot of them have different things, but these are like the cheapest college. Anyway, it's just information for you. Again, up until COVID, the tuition was rising. Now, tuition was rising up until COVID, but in the last year or so, I see a 5% drop in tuition, perhaps because of COVID. And it's good because it bucked the trend. The trend was going up. Now with COVID, it's kind of like shut down a little bit. So in fact, research shows that about 90% of the schools, of the freshman students that get into these private universities that I talked about, they get financial aid. And I'll break financial aid into 3 sections, but I'll move with that, talk about that later. Okay, let's say, for example, you go to Yale, for example, you're admitted. The sticker price is $57,000 for tuition. Okay, but they give you a grant, they give you a grant, maybe like about $40,000 grant, depends on what it is, and then you only pay just you pay a little bit. So sometimes it may be cheaper for you to get to these top schools, to go through these top schools, than go into your own state schools that don't really have too much money for as grants. So you have to understand. So the cost of education, sometimes you go into an Ivy League, the cost of education may be cheaper than if you were going to go to a local school. One of my children got into one of the Ivy Leagues, and the amount of school fees that she was supposed to pay was almost negligible. Going to 2 Ivy Leagues, and we had to choose. And of course, one of the things I advise parents and students also, if you're listening, when you apply to schools, if you apply to competitive schools, if you are admitted into one or both or 3 of them, well, it depends on what you apply, you can use whatever money they give you in one and go and bargain for the other. For example, for our own time, our daughter got into Cornell and Princeton and got to Carnegie Mellon. So we used the money out. You know what? Oh, Princeton, they're giving us this much money at Cornell. Can you match it? Of course, they matched it and they even did better. So we say, okay, you go to Princeton, or you go. So what I'm saying, you can bargain. There's nothing cast in stone. You can bargain. especially when you have a good result, when you have a good profile, when you have something great about you, maybe it's your sports or your extracurricular, it's your band, your music, it's your dancing, it's your theater, whatever extracurricular that you seem that you like to do, be the best in it. Be photography, let your name, let your articles be published in newspapers. It doesn't, everybody cannot be a sportsman, but whatever it is you do, be skillful in it, be the best in it. Be the best in it. And then you can sell that to the schools and say, you know what, hey, I have this, I'm a photographer, I'm this, I have good results, I'm also a photographer. What is it? What is it that spikes you? I like to use that language that Mr. Leshimogo said. What is that spikes you? What gives you that one chance to say, you know what, out of 100 people, they're going to take. Let me give you a simple statistic so you understand. If you apply about 4 or 5 years ago, I was just doing some revision and I got a letter from Princeton and they had about 35,000 people that applied. 35,000 people applied in that year, 2012 or 13 or something. 35,000 people applied. Out of that 35,000, they only gave space to 1,500. Out of that 35,000 that applied, back then the SAT scores was 2,400. They just changed it about a few years ago. 24 out of 2,400, 70% of the people that applied to them had 2,100 and above in SAT. 70%. That means if you 70% of 35,000, that's like 20-something thousand people had SATs of 2,100 to 2,400, meaning almost perfect. The remaining had between 2,100 and 1,950. So that means everybody that applied, the minimum that applied were like 1,900 and something to 2,400. So you see how many people were that rich, and they only had 1,500 spots. How do you become that one person that they're looking for? Let me tell you something. I went to I think it was Cornell that went to.
Give me cutting board.
So I went to Cornell and I saw that they had like 7 or 8 levels of admission. So they take you like a funnel. Everybody comes down, they come down until the 8th. Why do they want you in the school? There must be something special about you. I'm just telling you so you understand. So, okay, what does it take for the application breakdown? You have the application form, the essay, some of these Mr. Leshimogo I talked about, the transcript, your test scores, the recommendation letters, and I had emphasized. So I'm not going to go back on that again because I emphasized on that. So these are some of the things. The interview also, I remember that I was listening to I think my daughter was helping one of the interviews one time, and she was interviewing one of the students, because normally when you are an alumni of a college, they give you that opportunity to interview some of the prospective. And I was hearing about, I was listening to the interview, and then I was listening, and I'm like, oh, at the end of it, I'm not impressed. I don't think this guy will do well in this school. I said, why? Because A, B, C, D. They didn't do this. They had very great results, but they can't seem to understand it. There's something they cannot, they don't have A, they don't have B. And interview like 5, 6 students, and I said, okay. So I was learning. So I learned, I listened to a lot of things, and I try to learn from everywhere I can so that I can give information for my students in the future. So anyway, so what has changed because of the pandemic? This has changed, okay? Remote learning, extracurricular activities and internships have canceled. A lot of times you can get enough credit for the internship that you get into. Your SAT has been canceled. This past year, SAT canceled. It means that students, I think it's a very lucky year for students because a lot of students got into a lot of schools. I have some of my students that got into some very good schools. They didn't have to use a test. And I'm like, whoa, wow, this is, so the pandemic has its advantage. So sometimes it's like, so normally it would have been tougher to get into school, but they got to school because they had excellent results and they had good recommendation and they had good extracurricular, but they didn't have to do the SAT and ACT. So that was a bye year. But I'm sure this year, maybe after the vaccination, everything goes back to normal. So you'll be ready. Now, the AP exams are online, the test optional. Most schools now are test optional. And then, of course, you cannot visit the campuses. That's number one thing I recommend. Visiting the campus is very, very critical in choosing a college for your children. Visiting the campuses, I encourage the students to visit. Because sometimes like, what I thought is not what I think. I don't want to go to here anymore. Or some people, wow, I love this campus. I want to be here. So they'll do everything to make sure they get into that school. So of course, Zoom fatigue and learning. A lot of people are tired of Zoom learning. They want to see, want to feel, they want to touch their friends. There's a shift in dynamics of friendships. People can't hang out before. And then, of course, now students spend more time with family. So that's a good part of it. So you get to know your child more. So that's a good thing. Now, what I normally recommend when you get your college picks, it's like for the people who are picking colleges, you have safe schools, you have wish schools, you have top tier schools. The safe schools are schools that you have 80% chance of getting into. So you pick 4 of those ones. And then, when my children were getting to college, People thought I was crazy. You know, let me tell you something. Average of my children got they applied to 22, 23 schools because it's a common application. So common application, you know, my children, everybody was like, oh, my friends only did 5, 6. That's your friend, not you. In this house, this is what you do. So it was a little bit of a, you know, I didn't want to compromise. And it was tough because they had to write a lot of essays, they had to do this and do that. And they were very, very angry. But eventually, when the results started coming out, when they started picking them, when they got into maybe at least minimum of about maybe 10 or 11 schools, they were like, oh, okay, they were very happy. So I'm like, yo, you know, you have to work hard and then you see the results. So for me, again, that might be extreme. I'm not saying that you should do that, but at least get into minimum of, I would say 12 schools, just pick, I mean, apply to at least minimum of 12 schools, you know, that's my own recommendation. But again, it depends on the parents, depends on what you want to do, depends on the children. And please, especially for the students, don't limit yourself. Do not say, because this one is so much, I can apply. Try your best. You never know. You might be that one student, that one minority student that the school is looking for. They have enough people from China, from India, from white. They need minority students. They need African American. They need you. So you might be that one person that the admission is looking and say, you know what, we have enough of these people. We don't have enough of this. This person is not exactly, but let's take him. Let's take her. So you never know. So that's what I advise my students. Always try. Always try. Don't give up. So some of the things that students do when they get to college, and this is for parents mostly, they change their majors. They remain undecided. It's normal, is what I'm trying to tell you. They join clubs like the Greek club. They may keep the results from you. It's possible. You understand? They may become more motivated. They become less motivated. College is an experience, 4 years. So people change. They may change schools. I've seen some of my students change schools. Oh, uncle, I don't like this anymore. Okay, you know. So they may not graduate at the required time. So these are some of the things, but I just want you to understand that. So it takes a lot of understanding of the students. You really have to understand and be very helpful, not condemn, but be helpful to see. Sometimes they have obstacles that you can help to overcome. You know, they may be, it's not impossible. They may become less religious. They may study. They may go to study abroad, meaning that they will live here, go to Spain, go to Mexico, go to Italy, and study. They make new and impactful friends. That's the purpose of college. So some of these things happen. I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly in my years of college counseling. Okay, so now what do you do to remain relevant as parents? Well, you communicate with your teenagers, with your children, often to know their challenges. Children have a lot of teenagers have challenges, and a lot of parents are not understanding. They're condemning. Oh, your friend did this. No, don't. Every child is unique. God made everybody unique. So your child is different from my child. You understand? I have 4 children. I have 3 girls and a boy, and they're all as different as the night is from the day. You understand? Yes, I have one daughter, you understand? And she's even almost stronger willed than the other 3 boys. And the boys are, you know, they're chilled, they're mellow. So everybody is different. Everybody came from heaven with different qualities and characteristics. The best thing you want to do is to bring the best out of your child. Don't compare them with each other or with other children. Every child is unique. In my own opinion, every child is unique. So you give them suggestions, don't force them, don't threaten them. They all cannot become doctors or lawyers. They don't have to be. They can do what they just do. You're looking at the future. A lot of times, a lot of parents advise based out of fear. Oh, my child must be a doctor, must be a lawyer, must be a nurse, must be an engineer for them to succeed. No, that's not true. That's not correct. Just become, what does God want her or him to do? Let's put what is in line with what God's will, not our own will. Now, it would be good if our will is what God is. That's fine. I don't have any problems with helping your children to become doctors or lawyers. I don't have any issue with that. But I'm telling you that those are not the only things in the world. You can study psychology or philosophy and become the governor of this state. You can become the president, the head of this union. You can become anything. So don't limit that. It may be a beginning for them to get into where they want to go. So don't quash their dreams because you want them to become this. They may become, I'd rather have a teacher as a child and become one of the best teachers in this state than to have a doctor as a child who is one of the worst doctors, who has no zeal for the job. I have a friend whose parents in Nigeria, then they were very wealthy, and then they wanted the guy, he studied medicine, he graduated and he gave his certificate to his dad, and he went to become one of the best music producers in Nigeria. He did music. So let's be careful about how forcing our children into becoming what we want them to be, not what they want to be, and what God wants them to be. Most importantly for me, give it in the hands of God. Pray about it and talk to the child. Maybe they may change their mind. They may even like what you want them to do. They may eventually change their mind, but don't force. That's what I will encourage you. So you ask other parents for advice also. So anyhow, that's all I'm going to say. Again, there's a whole lot I could teach a whole 8 hours on different aspects of the college program. But for now, I'll say that this is what I have to give. And if you have any questions at the time that the questions are allowed, I'll be willing to talk to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Seth. We really appreciate that. We have time maybe for 2 questions right now. Don't worry, we'll have a lot more time at the end of the program to ask more questions as well. Any questions right now? That is. Okay, so I will just go ahead and move on to our next speaker. Prince Alex Leke Adesoye. Prince Alex Leke Adesoye is a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria. He was the Vice President, Accounts and Administration at ETCO Nigeria Limited before relocating to the United States.
Hallelujah.
Hello, praise the Lord.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. You can hear me?
Yes, sorry for the interruption. The next speaker, he has to leave. I think he's next and he has a tight schedule. I think his dad will excuse him. And I believe we should call Mr. Jide Adesoye.
Okay.
Yeah, he went to school here. He went to middle school, high school, Harvard, and from a student perspective, everyone that that been speaking, none of them, changed from. And went to elementary, middle school, or high school here. So let's welcome Mr. Jide Adesoye. So introduction.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Pastor.
Now, let me introduce you first.
Let me.
Okay,
all
go
right.
ahead.
So Mr. Jide Adesoye is a professional in the financial service industry. He is currently an investment banker focused on the energy and power industry at Lazard Ferraz and Company in New York City, and was previously an investment professional with the infrastructure department at the International Finance Corporation, World Bank Group in Washington, D.C. Prior to the World Bank, he started his professional career in 2012 as an investment banking analyst with Wells Fargo Security in Charlotte, North Carolina. A native of Nigeria, Mr. Adesoye moved to the United States at the age of 11 and spent most of his early years in Laurel, Maryland, Prince George's County, where he attended Laurel High School 2007. He attained an MBA from Harvard Business School in 2019 and a bachelor's in finance and accounting from the University of Maryland, College Park in 2012, where he was a Gates Millennium Scholar. After his undergraduate studies at UMCP, he has since lived in North Carolina, London, Boston, and New York. He enjoys mentoring and coaching young professionals and currently sits at the junior board of the College Jackson Academy, a private all-boys school in New York City aimed at educating boys from low-income households and placing them in top preparatory high schools across the U.S. Please help me welcome Mr. Jide Adesoye.
Yeah. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Thanks for the introduction. Yeah, it's good to be a part of the program, and thanks to Pastor Abe for extending the invitation. I think the previous 2 speakers who've spoken essentially have sort of captured a lot of what I was going to say. A lot of the points that they mentioned, I think, have been pretty good, and I would echo a lot of the points that they've already touched on. I think I'm a little removed from sort of the college application process because I graduated from high school in 2007, but I think I still have some insights that I can share to the high school students, the current high school students, and even the parents. So I think I'd like to make this as interactive as possible. So if there are any questions, please feel free to interject and ask me directly. I didn't come with any prepared sort of presentation because I don't want to bore anyone, but just feel free to sort of chime in. But overall, I think I think the high school and sort of college process in the US is pretty formulaic. Things have to be done in sequence, and as Pastor David touched on earlier, it all starts from, I think personally, from your middle school years going into high school, as it relates to testing, sort of extracurricular activities, as it relates to sort of forging good relationships with your teachers. I think all of these things are very, very important to do at the right time in order to get into whatever college, university you'd like to attend. So I think going into the 9th grade, the very first thing everyone has to ask themselves is, what's the ultimate goal? What's your objective? You know, after high school, are you looking to go to an Ivy League school? Are you Harvard, Princeton, Yale, Cornell? Or are you looking to go to a school that's a little maybe lower tier than that, but still a pretty competitive school? In order to, I think, achieve whatever ultimate goal you have, you need to have that goal at the back of your mind, and then sort of take the necessary steps towards that. So for me, so coming out of high school, I was I sort of made sure I was pretty sort of prepared test-wise. I think the PSAT, a lot of students now have to take the PSAT before you can take the SAT, and the PSAT is usually administered, I think, in the 9th grade or 10th. And that's really, I think, the first step in the entire process. The PSAT it's really a diagnostic test to help you assess where you stand academically as relates to the SAT. And if you think after taking the PSAT, you require a little more help and a lot more resources, I think you can then make that decision and sort of you know, proceed however you wish. So I think you know, it's and also I would also emphasize the importance of extracurricular activities. I think as immigrants, and I was sort of guilty of this in high school, you know, we tend to over-index on the academics, while the SATs and the GPA sort of data points are very important. I would not discount the importance of, you know, being involved outside of the classroom, you know, whether it's band, sports, being a liaison for your school to the sort of local community, even outside of your school. I think being involved in, I think someone had on one of the presentations on sort of local sort of political campaigns or presidential campaigns. Those things are things that sort of helps humanize your candidacy and makes you look a lot more interesting than sort of the next applicants in the pile. So you want to make sure you're investing as much time outside of the classroom as you are in the classroom. So I've you know, as I said, I've graduated high school about 14 years ago, but I think I'm pretty close to the process because I sit on the board of a school in New York. It's a middle school for high performing boys from low income backgrounds, and they go through the process to apply to high school and then to eventually apply to college. So I think I have some insights I can share, but I'll just leave it at that and open the floor to the students, specifically the students. If you have any specific questions that's sort of at the back of your mind as to the college application process, how to go about it, how to fund college, I'm happy to field those. So I was fortunate enough to have my undergraduate education funded through the Gates Millennium Scholarship Program. And my little sister as well, who went to Columbia, was also funded through the Gates Millennium Scholarship. But unfortunately, I think that's I think the time period for that is sort of expired. But there are other scholarship opportunities out there that people can apply to and use to fund their education. So I'll open the floor up, and if anyone has any specific questions, please feel free to offer those up. And I'm open to any and every question. Is
hello. Yeah. So my name is Bidemi.
Okay.
Can you touch up on what you know? Yeah. Thank you. On scholarships. I know you had mentioned the Gates Foundation again, but as much as you can mention in terms of how to research on scholarships, what you should be looking for, how to match whatever scholarships you should go after based on, you know, being Black, certain stuff, and what resources one should start planning for. Yeah. And then I don't want to say when is it late or when is it not late. You know, as much information as you can give on that, you can just one or two things on that. Thank you.
Yes, I think when I was applying, there was a website called FastWeb. I'm not sure if that's still relevant today, but that was a website that has.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, that was a website that essentially was a repository of every and any scholarship in the US for high school students. And it was so good that you could sort of filter through to sort of see what scholarships you qualify for based on your demographic, what year in high school you're in, what your involvements have been in high school. So that was a pretty good one that I use, and I would encourage students to also look into that to see if it's still relevant. The other scholarships, I know a lot of large sort of multinationals and corporations also have high school scholarships. One big one when I was in high school was the Coca-Cola scholarship. So that's one that's a privately funded scholarship that's available to everyone based on merit. So it's not based on financial aid. So they don't factor in how much, you know, your sort of household income is or whatever. It's based on how good of a student you are and how well you've performed in high school. Walmart also has a pretty good one that I think is it's still in play today. So I think, you know, casting a wide net, using, and I could come back to you on resources that I find online, but FastWeb was a very big one when I was applying, and I would imagine it's still a website that's still relevant today. But the web, I mean, the internet has a ton of resources out there. When I was applying beyond the Gates Millennium Scholarship, I think, and my sister as well, I think she probably applied to over 20 to 30 other private scholarships. So they vary by need and by merit. And you want to make sure you're applying to as many as possible. You know, depending on your situation.
When is a good time? 11th grade, 12th grade, 10th grade, to start applying for those? Especially the one tailored towards college. Not just, I know there are so many.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know. Not that I'm a novice to research and all that, but I always want to learn from whoever has been there. There's always something you can pick. But especially scholarship towards colleges. You know, there are some scholarships that people can even get in high school. To get them through 1,000 there, 5,000 there, even through Union Bank. There's a couple of them. So I'm just kind of more focused on, I want to be more focused on college-bound scholarships, especially if we say merit-based, based on, oh, thank you, Mr. Wilson, Pastor Wilson. Yeah, I'll snapshot that as well to put in my arsenal. So yes, just the one based towards colleges is the one I'll. I'm just throwing it out there, not just for myself, for
the benefit of everyone on the call. Yeah, absolutely. And someone's put all these websites on the page. So thanks for that. Yeah, I think, I mean, I would hasten to say maybe as early as you can. Granted, I think a lot of these scholarships aren't available to students until they are in the 10th or 11th grade. But if there are any that are available to students even in the 9th grade, I think they should start applying. But most scholarships going into college you would have to start applying from your 11th grade onward. So that's typically when students start looking for funding to fund their undergraduate education. But I do know for a fact that there are some scholarship opportunities for students even in the 9th grade that are cash based and not necessarily money to be spent towards their education after they graduate high school. So the sooner the better.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thanks.
If I may add a little bit about the scholarships. Again, you're free, like you said, like like the gentleman observed, when he was in school, he had it was only FastWeb was the one that everybody used to go to then. But of course, time evolved and technology, and they have newer ones, which I show some of them on the board. And I'm sure newer ones are coming up in how to get scholarship. But it's very important for you to understand that in all your schools, most of the schools have scholarships from even 9th grade. I remember when my son got to college, he had a scholarship from his school I don't remember when he was in high school, 9th grade. And we used the scholarship when he got into Villanova, like maybe 4 years after. So it was something, somebody just said, oh, you have a scholarship, so we got to go look for it, and then we're able to use it. It was only a few amount of money, but you never know. You get scholarship for, black something, for being the best in this area, for some Martin Luther King scholarship, or whatever scholarship that you can apply. And let me tell you something, you can start applying from 9th grade to use it in 12th, when you get to college. So there's no limit to it. I want you to understand that McDonald's scholarship, a lot of private companies give scholarships also. So even where you work at, where parents work at, a lot of them don't know that they offer scholarships to students. So you may want to look at all these options. There's a lot of scholarship out there, but getting scholarship is a job by itself. So it takes an excitable student to really look for scholarship, but it is possible. So that's what I'm going to say about that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
And one more.
Go ahead.
Sorry, one more thing I would add is if a student is if you're going to school, college, university in Maryland, most congressional representatives in the sort of district that you live in have scholarships that they give to students, and those are usually pretty easy to get. And those run for about $1,000 to $2,000 a semester. So you should also use that as a resource. Look up your local district representative in the House of Rep or in the Senate, and there's always a scholarship attached to their office to fund students who live in their district and go to in-state schools.
Okay, thank you.
How can you apply for that?
I'm sorry?
How can you apply for that?
Yeah, so I think you have to go through. It's been a while. I can look it up and get back to you. But if I remember correctly, I think you have to go through your Maryland sort of delegates websites. So if you just Google your Maryland, whoever your representative is, and scholarship, you should be able to find the results for that.
Yeah, that's correct.
So,
Okay.
Thank you.
Just this question is addressed to all the speakers. Yeah, I just want to know to what extent should the parents be involved in the children's school activities, both academically and otherwise, in terms of we know that for those in the high school, sometimes they have PTA. I know that for Nigerian parents, we tend to discount all these things because we are so busy, we are so preoccupied with so many things, which I call rat race. So I just want our parents to hear from you guys. To what extent should the parents be involved or invest, in the academics of their children?
If I may, I think I had the experience of, because didn't grow up in this country, didn't go to school here, and was thrown into this thing. This thing comes at you very, very quickly, very, very quickly. So my approach to how involved I was with the first child is completely different from the approach I took with my daughter. And I could also see the difference, in the results that I got. I was so busy running after money. You're already going to school, so just be doing well. I think one thing that we Africans, there's a mistake, not so much of a mistake. We need to build relationship with our kids. Very, very important. They should get to a point that they can discuss anything with. And not only academics or this thing, they should get to a point where they can discuss anything with you. How we grew up, the environment we grew up is completely different from what it is right now. I mean, the amount of information that comes to them at once is unbelievable. Is unbelievable. So it starts from there, and you have to be involved. You just have to be involved. There's so much. And like the speaker that spoke after me said, the pastor that spoke after me said, children are different. Some are self-motivated. They are, so you as a parent, you need to step back, understand that there's some of your kids that you push, and that will push them into depression. So you also have to kind of like know that, understand that line, look for what works with that particular child. There are some that are self-motivated, that are great, they are goal-getters. I know, okay, this one, I just need to kind of like channel a lot more to. There are some kids that might not necessarily be an Ivy League, might not be the best kind of school for them. I did a tour, and I went to MIT. My son was trying to get into MIT that year on a football scholarship. We went there. As soon as I stepped on that campus and we went, I said, even if they give my child 100% scholarship, my son is not coming here. I want him alive. No, because I had taken the time out to study the temperament of my child. I had taken the time out to study, so it wasn't just the branding that he's in MIT. So because, I mean, if I'm sure the other panel this can correct me, there are some colleges that have nets under their bridges. So you have to understand the temperament of your child, how far you can push the child, how you can get the child to, how you can motivate the child. What might work for one child might not necessarily work for another. And being involved with the students, I had an issue with an AP government teacher in my child's school. My daughter got a B in that class, and which was her strong point. And because she had taken an AP exam that she scored a 5, she scored a 5 on. And this teacher would not just grade her other classes. I took it up with them in the school. I took it up with the principal. I was there. I wrote letters. I wanted to go all the way. So there are some students that, you would really, she wanted it, well, I wanted it more for her than she wanted it for herself. She felt I was making a big fuss out of it. So you have to be involved. You really, really have to be involved, but you have to understand the temperament of your child and the degree to which you want to push, because children are different. You can't compare one child with the other. There are a lot of mental issues going on in the around right now. There's social pressures and all that. So in a bid to try to get our kids to be competitive, let's not lose focus of the larger picture of having children that are happy and are well-rounded. Sorry for the long-winded answer.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question. And my question,
no, Pastor,
can you hear me?
Sorry, Pastor, the question was that my question was directed to all the speakers. So
yeah, because of our time, Mr. Wilson, Pastor Wilson is coming tomorrow. Tomorrow is the grand finale. You have a whole session, at least 45 minutes.
Okay.
And we also have in the house, and I would say our grandpa, Prince Alex. He will talk more on parent perspective.
Okay.
And for you as an adult to have not just 3 grown children to Ivy League colleges, you must be doing something. I mean, he must have done something. So he will share, he will answer most of your questions or most of our questions in that perspective. But my question goes to Mr. Gidi. You finished from Laurel High School, And Laura High School is in Pijikanri, is one of the, one of the least high schools in the state of Maryland. We had so much myths about the school. They said drug, they did this, they did that. They are not college ready. My question is, we have so many of our children here. They are in middle school, they are in high schools. What did you do in terms of what prepared you, what singles you out among the crowd? You came to the US at the age of 11. Obviously, you were in middle school. If I can remember, Bladensburg High School or somewhere in Toledo or somewhere around there, there were prejudice, you navigate all those, you weather those storms. And what helped you? What did you do? Your junior ones, they're here, they're listening to you. And what helped you? How did you get a scholarship? What did you do on your part? We have had, and we'll stay here as parents, what we need to do. Students want to hear from you. Uncle, what did you do? How did you get scholarship, number one? How did you prepare? What helped you? How did you find yourself in Wall Street, World Bank, North Carolina, and Harvard? Tell them, educate them. Thank you.
I think, I think this question is somewhat related to the last question as to how involved the parents should be. So every child, I think, is different. Some children are a little more self-motivated than others. I would like to think, my dad might defer, but I would like to think I'm a little more self-motivated than most of my peers were in high school. So I think, especially when you go to a school where maybe you're not necessarily surrounded by people who are equally driven, equally motivated, or probably are coming from a home background that's not as stable as mine was. So everyone's situation is different. But I think sort of the overarching trend that I've seen amongst those of my friends and those similar to me who've been able to thrive despite their circumstance has been sort of an internal drive to sort of make the most of themselves. So internally, if you're self-motivated and you're willing to just work hard, regardless of what high school you attend, or because I went to in my grad school at Harvard, most of the people who I went to classes with tend to have come from Ivy League undergraduate institutions. And in order to attend an Ivy League undergraduate institution, for the most part in this country, it's not always the case. So for the most part, you must be coming from either a very, very good public high school, like Thomas Wooten, Potomac, Eleanor Roosevelt, or be coming from a very, very good prep school in high school, right? So for someone like myself to have come from a place like Laura High School, and I've obviously went to Maryland, but also done well, I think, or decently well enough, I think, in my professional career, and then ultimately go to HBS. I think it's a matter of just having an ultimate goal within yourself and knowing that regardless of what circumstance surrounds me, I have a goal in mind. I'm just going to keep shooting for that. Now it's very tough to do that because we don't live in a vacuum in this world, right? There are always external pressures that sort of impact a child growing up. You have your friends doing things that you might distract you, but are more fun than just maybe studying in a library on a Friday night. But I think if you have in your mind that, okay, this is where I'd like to be in 5 to 10 years, as sort of your North Star, I think that's always something that keeps me, or kept me grounded, and I think keeps students grounded. And the second thing I would say to students is just watch who you surround yourself with. Obviously in college, you're surrounded by people from all walks of life coming into one environment. And inevitably, you'll be surrounded by people who are similar to you, similar to yourself, and people who are very different from you. And one thing that worked very well for me in hindsight, just looking back to my undergraduate years, was making sure that I surrounded myself. Obviously, I like to have fun and like to, so kept friends who were pretty jovial, but also surrounded myself with friends who were also very, very driven, right? They had an ultimate goal in mind. After college, they wanted to be in a certain role, in a certain career. So I made sure that I kept those friends very close and relied on them in times of need. You know, whenever you're sort of struggling with finals, it's finals week, or you're going through a rough patch, it's always better to have a network, a solid network of friends that you can rely on, and it just makes the college experience that much easier for you. So the friends you surround yourself with is critical. Having the ultimate goal. Everyone has to have an ultimate objective. What is it that you want to accomplish in 5 years, 10 years? I like to think of my life in 5-year increments. What do I want to see? What do I see myself in 5, 10 years? And what are sort of the prerequisite steps I need to take now to get to that step? So even coming out of high school, sounds kind of crazy looking back, but I'd always known and my dad probably touched on this, but I'd always known I wanted to work on Wall Street. So even going into my freshman year in college, I found out about an internship program called SEO and Inroads and MLT. Those are all programs that are geared towards students interested in finance or financial services. And my very first semester in my freshman year of college, I applied to a ton of internships and externships just to give myself a leg up when it comes time for a full-time role. If you're looking to get into professional services, investment banking, consulting, what have you, you need to have very good internships from your freshman year, because your junior year, what internship you get your junior year will look very closely at what you did during the summers between your freshman year and your sophomore year, and your sophomore year and your junior year. So you need to be very, very deliberate about how you plan these things. Otherwise, you can get to the point where you're in a bind. You come your junior year and you're just sort of scrambling to find something. So surround yourself by good people. In summary, have an ultimate goal in mind, and just a little bit of luck as well. I think I've been very fortunate to have very supporting parents who have been very supportive of me and my goals, and both financially as well as otherwise. And yeah, I think with those, a little bit of luck, supportive family, good friends, and just some hard work, I think anything is possible. And that's been the case for me, and we'll see what the future holds.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, hello, sir. I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Yeah, my question is, does this scholarship you talked about, does it have to do anything with startups?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch your question.
Yeah, does it have anything to do with a startup in the country, like for the kids and all that?
I heard, does it have something to do with startup? I didn't catch the first part of your question. Sorry, the sound is a little weird.
I'm talking about the startup of the kids or the startup.
Oh, I think it says startups. There are kids, there are children that are coming from Africa, from other parts of the country. I mean, other parts of the world to come to study here in the US. Like Pastor Wilson said, people coming from other parts of the world. If I get your question right, your question is, does it have to do with status in terms of your papers, in terms of whether you have a green card or you are a US citizen? I believe Pastor Wilson can answer that.
Yes, as a matter of fact, I was going to say something about that. And yes, now, a lot of what I said and what the speakers have said concerns normally, mostly the normal student who perhaps maybe they were born here or they have their legal papers. Now, if you are a DACA student or an international student, there's a little bit of more hoops to climb. And the truth is, it opens doors for you if you're smart, if you are really very good. It opens doors for you, even if you don't have any status, supposedly. But the law states, at least in the local laws and the US laws, allows a student under 18 or a person under 18 to go to school as a requirement. You understand? Go to high school. At least after high school, then that's different. But what in my several consultations with several families who have papers, who don't have papers, who are international students, whatever. I mean, I've dealt on both sides of the aisle. And what I see that is key is the fact that if the student does very well, then it makes it easy, even if they don't have any supposedly legal papers in this country. If they do very well, it opens a lot of doors. I've dealt with students who are like that. The program I was running, I brought in the organization that I work for. We brought in about 21 boys from Nigeria, from almost zero backgrounds, who were not children of teachers, children of maybe government people or anybody's child in Nigeria. We did competition and we brought them in here, and they've all graduated. A lot of them went to like elite private institutions on scholarship. They didn't have any money. They didn't even have money for flights. A lot of times we have to pay for the flight. The company had to pay for the flight to bring them here. But they all graduated now from American colleges and universities. But they were all, like I said, they all came in here. They didn't have anything, but we give them opportunities. And they 95% of them made use of that opportunity. So one thing I must give this country is the land of opportunities. If you do well, and this is what I keep telling you, if you do well, it opens doors for you. Like the Bible says, your skills will open doors for you. So if you do very well, there's tendency, even if you don't have papers, to overcome that obstacle by doing extraordinarily well. And I've seen a lot of changes. And sometimes the laws will, the schools may say this is how much you pay, but they may even open some doors that are not normal doors. I have one of my students, who also came in here with a parent a single parent in Nigeria, and the girl, very smart girl, got in here. We went to one of the local schools in Maryland, and over time, the parents found out she lost the job in Nigeria, couldn't afford to send the girl to school here. And I consulted, I'm like, what are we going to do with this girl? The parents had paid the first year, couldn't pay the other years, but the girl was very smart and she had the resolve to do well. She had the resolve. Eventually, she got into another, I encouraged her to apply to another school out of state in Wisconsin, a small liberal arts college. And they gave her she went from a university here where they were paying only about $20,000, $25,000 to a school that is $55,000 in Wisconsin. But guess the difference. They gave her a scholarship in the first year. They gave her a scholarship of like 40-something thousand. Then the final year, now she's in final year and she's graduating in the next 1 month or so. And I'm really very proud of her. And she hasn't paid, she has zero money from the parent after the first year. And she's able to self-motivate herself. Now in this school she is in now, she's gotten all kinds of scholarship. Even though everybody knows her in the school, she's done well. So if you do well, you can open doors for yourself. And she's going to, by God's grace, she's going to be a doctor. She just finished her first degree. She's going to go into medical school. And she's so smart. And I'm always proud of her. So for me, I have a lot of students like that. All the students we brought in from Nigeria, they all did very well. And we have one that was lost his focus. But most part, if you do well, doors will open for you in this country. So yeah, everything we've talked about is for the normal students. But if you're a DACA student or you don't have papers, there's a little bit more hoops that you need to climb, but it's not impossible. That's my bottom line. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for that information. I'm sorry, we still have one more speaker, and we would like to hear from him as well. This is Prince Alex Leke Adesoye. You can tell with how successful his son is. He's someone that we should, hear how he did it. But Prince Alex Leke Adesoye is a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria. He was vice president, accounts and administration at ETCO Nigerian Limited before relocating to the United States in 2002. Prince Leke also worked with Pension Benefit Guaranteed Corporation, Washington, D.C., before venturing into self-employment and entrepreneurship as a real estate agent and subsequently as a real estate appraiser. In 2009, Prince Leke, along with two others of like minds, passion, self-determination, and self-discovery, joined together in partnership to incorporate ICON Logistic LLC in the state of Maryland, where he serves as Vice President, Executive Director of Operations. Prince Leke is also an Executive Director of Oak Logistic Nigerian Limited in Lagos, Nigeria. By the grace of God, Prince Alex Leke Adesoye, together with his wife, has successfully trained and nurtured 4 adult children, Mrs. Bola Akuna, a pharmacist, Jide, a Harvard MBA graduate, Shubomi, a Carnegie Mellon MBA student, and Koi, a Columbia University engineering graduate. Please join me in welcoming Prince Alex Leke Adesoye.
There we go.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Good evening, sir.
And good evening, the children online. I just want to follow up on what the 3 earlier speakers spoken about without having to repeat what they have said. First, I want us to know that I didn't go to college in this. So, but like you have heard from the person who did the introduction, I have put 4 children through college. And one of them is the last speaker. He's one of my success stories. So I'm going to be talking mainly based on the parent perspective and not somebody who has gone to college in America. Having said that, I just want to, just as a summary, though some of the speakers have said it, the participants in the child's education, number 1 is God. Number 2, the parent. Number 3, the school community. And number 4, the child himself or herself. And everybody has a role to play. So it depends on how each of us play our part. As a parent, what I learned early, because I was focused. I mean, my coming to America was not because I have challenges in Nigeria or whatever. The main focus was because I just had an instinct of what was going on, especially in the education sector in Nigeria, and suffered to get my own education. And I already made up my mind from the onset that I'm going to give my children that world-class education. Then there came this issue of lottery. And lo and behold, we were one of the winners. I had to tell my wife, look, let's sacrifice these 2 lives for the lives of the 4 young ones that God has given into our care. And that's the reason why we're here. Honestly speaking, America is a land of opportunity. Let's not deceive ourselves about that. If you can't get it right here, I don't know where it can be easier for you to get it right in terms of educating your children. That's the reason why we got here. But when I got here, I saw that the children themselves too, they have a lot of challenges, a lot of pressures they face from peers, in school, on the street. In almost every community you find them. So that is where comes in the effort of the parents, the attention of the parents. That's what makes us make our impact very important in getting them the kind of education that's anybody can dream of. So from the beginning, from what we saw, me and my wife, we made up our mind. I'm going to be talking mainly to the parents, but the students who can learn from it so that they know where and when to cooperate with the parents. So we made up our mind. What we need to do is, at any point in time, we're not going to leave these children alone for more than 2 hours, come what may. And that is what made me to venture into self-employment. I wouldn't know whether I was going to work or it was not going to work. But I knew something when I was going to leave my job, Pension Benefit Guarantee Corporation. The calculation was that who will be able to find job more easily in case that person who leaves the job needs to go back to work. And we determined that I will be able to find a job more easily than my wife. So I pull out. So she will take an early hour job because she had to resume at 6 o'clock so that she can be back by 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I will stay with the kids until the last one of them, who is that young man that spoke. He was always the last one to go to school. I'll be with them. So by the time they are all in school, that's when I'll be going to work. By the time they are coming back from school, their mom too is back in the house. That's how we rough that weather. Thank God we did that, because I had one of them that wouldn't have been what he is if he had been left alone. He's very creative and very sneaky, and he can play any game around. But because we're always there, so he had to always put himself on check all the time. So what am I saying here? What I'm saying is that your presence as parents with the children, most of the time, even if you cannot help them in their homework, the fact that they know that one of you is there, they're not going to while away their time watching TV when they are supposed to be studying, because there's somebody who's always there to tell them, you have to do this. They are not going to be on the phone talking what they're not supposed to talk with their friends. They will not know what they're not supposed to know at the wrong age, or somebody is always there with them. So that was one of our own formulas. I give God the glory, but this is one of the things that worked for us. Now, when it comes to getting them into college, we all have the dreams, wanting our children to be lawyers, doctors, and whatever. But like the other speakers have said, not everybody will be doctors, not everybody will be lawyers. We tell them what we want, what we are hoping for, but at the same time, we have to be very attentive and listen to them, what they also want to do. It's also important. If you find any loopholes or whatever that you need to talk to them about, that's the time you can talk about it. It's not about criticism or forcing it on them or whatever. A child will be a child anytime. We have all passed through it, gone through it. So we didn't just get to where we are now without our parents. When it comes to them going to college, there are some things that are considered very critical for parents, like visiting some of the, they will tell you, I want to go to this college, or this is what I want. You have to create time to visit. In my own experience, the first person, if I knew what I know now, maybe all of them will go to Ivy League college. Because the first experience is different. Now, the first one, I never visited any college, but thank God she was smart on her own and she was able to get it to University of Maryland. I was even so naive to the extent that I didn't even know that you could make a payment plan for the school tuition. So I was always struggling to have to look, because I didn't want them to go to college with a loan. I have to suffer myself and save up so that the first day of school, I will be able to pay. So I didn't know you could do payment plan, which is one of the easiest way of sending your child to college. Almost every school, every college has that. You don't have to pay the first day of school or pay the very first month. Make a deposit and they can spread the balance over the academic year. I've heard from some parents who were in the same position that I was then. Even till now, they don't know that they could do that. That might be one of the takeaway from this meeting. Then visiting the school, even before the child gets into college, you get a lot of information. That is where I first heard that there are some grants that are need-based. There are some grants that are need-blinds or stuff like that, all those kind of terminology. Now, a lot of people think going to Ivy League school is very expensive. Oh, I may not be able to afford it. It may not be so. As African American, we occupy some special position. And I can tell you from experience that in those Ivy League colleges, if they require a white guy, a white boy, to have 2100, or let me put it this way, a white boy might have 2100 SAT score and not get in, whereas an African American will have maybe 1800 and will still get into that college. Reason being because most of those colleges, there's something they call diversity in their acceptance process, admission process. So I'm not saying that a child should not do very well in the SAT or whatever, but like Pastor David Eleshimago said, that numbers are not everything. It is true. If numbers are everything, somebody who has 2100 should get in before somebody with 1800. And for our female African American students, they call it like double minority. You also have some special advantage also over the boys. Even, you are an African American, that's first level of advantage you have. Then a female, that's second advantage that you have. So we might think they will get into those Ivy League colleges. It's not all that we're looking at. And when we're considering the fund, from experience, I see that my daughter went to Columbia College. The least of the year, tuition, room and board was $78,000. The college will have granted her $55,000. Coupled with the Gates Millennium Scholarship that she had, maybe at the end of the day, I would just be paying less than 10,000. As a matter of fact, it was the first year that I made some substantial payment. The other years, which were even more expensive, the last 2 years, I didn't pay that. He was actually having a credit. So let's give it a shot. In Pastor Adewale's presentation, he categorized the colleges into 3 groups. Some are safety nets for you. Some are the Ivy League, and some the second category, I can't remember how it categorized. Yeah, that's the way it should be. That's the way it should be. So if you live in the state of Maryland, I don't know why you now apply to University of Maryland, Towson, and so on, because it's better to go to any of those colleges, staying at home for 1 year. So that is that. Then, as parents, preparing them for college, you know that there are some summer programs that we also have to be aware of. Like my last daughter, in her 10th grade, attended the SAMS program in Carnegie Mellon. I think it's science, maths, and something. That program is University of Carnegie Mellon for, I think, about 12 weeks. It's always sponsored. it doesn't cost you anything other than to take the child there. My daughter went there for free food, free accommodation. And during that program, that was when she took her first SAT. And she had enough score that could even get her. I think she had about 1,800 that could get her into college. She was still just a 10th grade. So we can look into programs like that. Then also when we're talking about scholarship, one thing I want to share with us is also that parents, our role. You know, most of this scholarship and college application, they have their deadlines. And we have to familiarize ourselves with those deadlines. For a child, this is from my experience. They think I can do it tomorrow. And when tomorrow comes in, I still have time. I can do it next day. I still have time. I can do it. And every day that passes by, you are drifting away from that opportunity. So you as a parent have to insist that you have to be part of it, 100%. Always stay on them and make sure they submit the college application, meeting the deadline, submit the essays that they need to submit, meeting the deadline, scholarship essays, I follow. They find the scholarship on their own, but they have to involve me, bring it to me. Even when they write the essays, I still review it. And essays for most of those scholarships, it's not about academic and stuff like that. I'm thinking one of the things they want to see is that how have you been helpful to your community so far? And when you get this scholarship, we empower you. How useful are you going to be to the society? Those are the kind of themes that they want to see in the essays. My kids got here when they were very young. They knew little or nothing about Nigeria. But we normally try to give them things about Nigeria, ideas and stuff like that. And we try to see how we can tailor it to, okay, I'm in America, but I'm not just here for myself alone. I finish from here. My focus is maybe partly Africa or Asia, how I want to help them and stuff like that. Those are some of the things they are looking for that they want to see. So you have to make sure that the contents of their essay is, it can capture the attention of the people who are looking at it. Just wanted to add that to what they said about. So we need to stay on them, make sure that they fulfill everything, do everything at the right time. And now, for scholarship, I mean, for them to get the education, can be from your personal finance, like I said. You can make a payment plan. That's where you do the financial aid also. You're going to see the grant, the state grant and stuff like that before you start talking about scholarship. If for any reason a child cannot get into any of those universities, whether public, private, or any of the big ones or the public ones or whatever, we should also consider the possibility of going through a community college. But it's not ill luck to go through community college. I know most of us don't want it for our children. We don't like it, whatever. But something we have to remember, I don't know, that I heard even Obama first went to a 2-year community college before going to Columbia. And he eventually became the president of the United States of America. So it's not a bad thing. It's not completely bad to go to a community college. As a matter of fact, if you are a struggling parent and your child cannot get scholarship, you can go into any of the Ivy League that will give them a lot of grants. It's a cheaper way to go through community college. Do 2 years in community college. You just have to do that with a focus on the course you are going to do in the university and what credits are acceptable in your intended university. So that when you present your credit, your community college credit, they're going to give you credit in that university. So it's another way out to do it. In this country, one thing we have to know, even though we are putting pressure on the children and we want to compare them with other children and whatever, they don't see education as a competition the way we see it in Africa. And say, oh, you have to come first or you have to come second. All they are looking at is for the children to develop together and achieve the goals. To get the more, the merrier. That's what they are looking at. So if your child is still doing well, but it's not the best in school, it's not the time to condemn or to compare or whatever. You have to encourage that child. And like we have, one of the speakers said, we have to be part of what they are doing. We have to be close to them. They should be able to talk to us very well. Yes, it is absolutely true. And I will give a testimony about that. I had a child that we wanted him to study, and he said he wanted to do computer science or computer engineering. And first semester, he was there. After the first semester, I came back because I was always very close to them. Came back to me and said, Dad, I said, yes. I said, I don't know why I'm there. I don't know why I'm in that class. I feel strange. I'm in the midst, University of Maryland here, I'm in the midst of these Asian guys and I'm the only Black and I'm not getting most of the things we're doing. If I continue, I might drop out. I said, okay, sit down. You decided that's what you wanted to do. If you don't want to do that now, what else do you want to do? And we agreed on what he's going to do. That's the guy who is in another 2-3 months' time, he'll be an MBA holder. So I encouraged him to change his course because he said he was going to change it. I said, what do you want to change? He told me. So, okay, go and change it. He changes classes to business studies and was able to graduate in the School of Business. I made him to spend 5 years because I wanted him to be a CPA, to spend 5 years in college so that he can, you have to have 150 credit hours for you to write CPA in America. So I made him stay extra 1 year. He went for the first CPA exam. I bought all the books and everything. He didn't make it. When I came back, he said he didn't. I said, okay, don't worry, I'll pay for another one. Paid again after graduating from high school and was working with one of the accounting firms. He wrote it the second time. He came back to me again and said, look, I have my own game plan. All this one you're asking me to do, this is not what I want to do. I want to be in consulting. So forget about the CPA. I said, okay, that's fine. If you want to be in consulting, let's prepare for business school. And I gave him money to apply to business school. And he wrote the exam one time for, the GMAT exam, and he was accepted into about 3 business schools. So children are not the same. In the case of his brother, I didn't have to do that because he had his mind. Even though I made him also to stay 5 years in the university because I always wanted to take after my own profession, to be a CPA. He did it. As soon as he finished it, he told me, I'm not doing no CPA. He didn't want to sit for the exam one time. He said, from high school, I told you I want to be in finance and I want to be in Wall Street. So that's what I want to pursue. Forget about CPR. Fine, go ahead. And lo and behold, he got his first job in New York, even though the office was not in Wall Street. But he looked for a house on Wall Street. And that's where he lived for all that period. So everybody has his own destiny. Even though we have role to play as parents, they have their own destiny. We can only just give them suggestion on what we want them to do. And leave the things to play out, but just stay focused. The one that is a pharmacist, while she was in school, she was doing their fashion parade. I would take her almost everywhere. As long as, I told her, as long as you are not dropping in classes and your GPA is not dropping in college, you want to do fashion parade. She went as far as New York. She will go and do that. I know Pastor Leshimago will probably know her. That's the girl in the technical department before. So I took her everywhere because I know that she's a girl, but she has the heart of a man. So she's not somebody you can push her so seriously and think she will do exactly what you want her to do. She has her own mind and she will go by what she thinks. So we have to study the children individually, understand them, and deal with each of them the way they are. If this girl will ask me for something, even if I'm going to give her, I always want to question, why is this? What do you need? Because I know no matter how much I question her, until she gets what she wants, she's going to come back again. But the guy that finished talking to you now, if she says something and you say, no, I don't have that one, he's never going to come back to you. So I know they are two different people. So if I'm going to give him something, I'll tell him, okay, remind me at so time. I don't have it. I know he will come back. Because if I don't say remind me, he's not going to come back. But the other one, he will keep coming back. And the one in Carnegie Mellon, even if you keep rejecting them, they keep coming back to you until they get what they want. So there are differences. We have to deal with each of them based on their differences. So in a nutshell, the role of parents in getting them to college, getting them through college is very, very critical. It's not so, we cannot delegate that to the teacher, especially those of us living in Prince George's County. We have to know that. We're living in Prince George's County, even though they said this is the richest Black county or Black community, I don't see the impact of that in the education of the children. The home front plays a major role to how far they will go. So let's just take note of that. Having said all this, I think I want to say something. What Pastor Abe is doing is very commendable. I wish I have had somebody to put me in something like this when I first came in 2002. I probably would have done much better. Every child has a potential, but the company they keep, the home they come from, the community they live in, play a lot of role in how far they can go.
Yes.
I know their self-determination is also important, but you know, Hillary Clinton says it takes a village to raise a child. And there is no self-made man. Wherever you are, whatever position you are, somebody got you there. Somebody helped you along the way. This is a big help. It's very enlightening. It's good to learn from people that have done research. They have helped other children to get into colleges like Pastor Wilson. And it's good to hear also from parents like myself and Pastor Leshimago. And just to add something, somebody asked about how do we get scholarship? Apart from those websites that they shared with you. That thing called Google is also very, very helpful and very powerful. You go on Google and you say high school senior scholarship. I'm sure you're gonna come across so many things. Or you just say scholarship for girls or scholarship for boys or whatever. You find a lot of things. And I'm sure you children can do a lot of that on your own without having to depend on your children, on your parents. You can use Google to find out almost everything that you want, you need. So, Pastor Lucian, thank you so much. God will reward you for what you are doing. Reward your children too, because you are helping other people's children. God has a way of paying you back.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the reward that I got in America, because to have two kids that went through college for free, it's not like that everywhere. It's God's way of paying me back. I have put at least 6 children through college in Nigeria that are not my own children. So I believe that God cannot just leave me alone to my own and say, go and handle it yourself. That's what I got back.
All right, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And I'm sure everyone learned 1 or 2 things from what all our speakers have had to say. So that being said, we can open the floor to questions to our speakers. Please make it brief. So if you have any questions,
Hallelujah.
Praise the living Jesus. And we promised to end by 7 o'clock. It's almost 7, and I never knew we can stay for 3 hours continuously. It shows that every one of us, we are learning and we're gaining. By the grace of God, tomorrow, like I said, we're going to have Pastor Adewale live in our church. It's also going to be on Zoom and also on YouTube. But he's going to come live, and if you want to come, you can come, and then you can join on via Zoom. I just want to use this opportunity to appreciate every one of us, especially our speakers, and every one of us that has joined us. Reverend Sam.
Can I have a question before you thank us, please?
Yes, and before I call you, sir, Reverend Sam, and most of other people. I think I saw Adewale. She was answering some questions, posting some stuff, and she's also like Gide. So her younger ones want to hear from her. She sent a note, and she said it is better for students to take the SAT at the 10th grade. So let's hear her. Let's for 1 or 2 minutes to shed more light on what she's been able to do and what God has been able to accomplish through her. Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
We can hear you.
Oh, there is.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, Mr. Teju.
Just getting feedback.
Is she there? Okay, while we're waiting for her, let's hear from some Pastor Sam Ore.
All right. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. Thank you so much. We appreciate. I mean, this is very awesome. I mean, I have to commend you, Pastor Adewale, for this initiative. Thank you so much for giving back to the community. We really, really appreciate this. Funny enough, we're having something similar today on another, webinar where I was, talking to pastors and leaders, but from this project, point of view of, what to do to the children. But this is academic, so it's like I'm having a full dose of, what we're supposed to do today to raise our children. Now, and I also appreciate all the speakers, Pastor David Leshmugun and Pastor J.D. Adesoye and Pastor Wilson Adewale, who happens to be my good friend. Thank you so much. You guys are just the real deal. Now, my questions are two-pronged. The first one is, so what would you say, and this is for the speakers, and of course, I want to appreciate, the father of, Jide, Mr. Adesoye. I was so humbled with your testimony. Thank God for your humility and thank God for the grace of God. Like, we really, really appreciate you, sir. Now, my question is, the first one is, what would you say to people who believe that when a child has discovered his gift of passion earlier enough, let him just focus on that all the way to college? In terms of which type of school to go to and all of that. Because, for instance, somebody wants to be a singer, for instance, or a musician. Why can't he be allowed to go to a music school that is not necessarily a full-fledged university? Or to, let's say, wants to be, an actor. There is a New York, Academy. What's it called now? New York Film Academy. So that's not a regular university. And that's the first question. The second one is, some of these, there's another school of thought that is saying that the academic curriculum, the academic situation today is becoming antiquated, as it were. And they give examples of people like Bill Gates and these other guys in the IT who drop out from school and they're not the one ruling the world and all of that. Now, we keep telling them that education is not just about money, it's about being trained to be a responsible leader. It doesn't have to do all do with money. So what are you going to say to these people with these schools of thought so that, our children don't come under this kind of pressure and say, no, they don't know go to school because Bill Gates dropped out from school and the richest man, all these other guys in the IT field, they drop out from school and they are billionaires today because they believe that the educational system is warped. So that's my question. Those two questions.
Who goes first? Pastor Wilson.
Okay, I'll go first. Thank you very much, Pastor Sam. Good to see you. And again, I'll just quickly say the first question that Pastor Sam asked is perhaps what about if a student does not want to go to a regular college? And let me be honest with you, that's one part that we always miss out. And you brought it out because there's some children who necessarily do not want to go through the four-year college of four-year program of university. It doesn't mean that it cannot be successful. Remember, I think Prince Adesoye had talked a couple of things about that in terms of maybe they may want to go to community college. It doesn't, you see, remember now, we're looking at the overall success of a child. Let me tell you now, my last born is not going to a regular college. He's going to the U.S. Naval Academy, which of course was a little bit tough to get in, but he is going to a college that is a military college, and that's a career that he chose for himself. So he's going to come out as a military officer. So there are options that some children may have, and they say they want to go to the military, and they say they want to start from maybe from the ROTC in the school, and then from there they go into the military. So there's several different options. So there's no one way. And like he said, some kids may say, you know what, I have a talent in acting. This is what I want, and then they go to the school of art. I have some people who want to be graphic artists, and they have a special school for them. So there are different schools. This country is blessed with a lot of opportunities, but we as parents, we don't really know. We don't know too much, so therefore we limit our options to what we know. So my advice to parents is this: like Mr. Adesoye said, know your child enough that you know what are the special talents that this guy or this girl has enough that will now make them the best. For example, suppose your son is going to be the next best actor on in Hollywood. How can you tell? He has shown elements of it, or she has shown elements, and then so you support them to whatever will make them successful. I have one of my friends whose kid said they want to go to college, they want to be a police officer. So I said, okay, you know what? Leave him alone. He wants to go to, let's encourage him to a police academy so he can become a very high-ranking police officer and that's what he wants to do. He's not interested in anything else. So there's some kids that want to do different things. So let's be supportive of whatever, knowing that look at the ultimate goal. That's what I would say. And also in terms of people like Bill Gates, what's his name? Facebook, Zuckerberg. Sure. They all started college. They went to Harvard. They went to prep schools. Then they said, okay, you know what? We have enough to take out, and then we start our own business, and they became successful. But of course, yeah, that's one way. Now, college by itself does not mean success, but it's a foundation for a future success. Now, what I want to encourage parents to do is let your children, a lot of them have dreams, and without doing it, unfortunately, we kill those dreams because we kind of like put down their dreams. A lot of these guys are the future of this country. A lot of the guys that we have online here are children. They're going to rule this country. They're going to in different spaces, in the arts, in the education, in the finance world, in the business world, in the religious world. So we want them to be leaders everywhere. Now, the basic education, which is a bachelor's degree, is what is just a good foundation. So as long as you let your child know, we want you to be successful, we want to teach you how. For example, there was one of my friends who was very successful in Nigeria, and the child was born here, and the child wanted to be a musician, and she's been singing in church. And the girl was almost adamant. So when I went to the house and I said, I don't know what's wrong with this girl. I said, calm down. I talked to the girl and we had a rapport. And I said, you know what? Both of you can win. The child ended up going to NYU. Now she's a musician in Nigeria and she's doing very well. She went to college. I said, you know what? Your father wants you to be successful. So go to school, learn the success of music. How can you become successful as a musical, as a producer, as a musician? And then she did. And now she's singing. She's doing what she wants to do. She's graduated from college. So success comes in different form. Don't put it in just a box that you have to be this for you to be successful. That's not true. A lot of these children, they will be in 10, 20 years, the future of this country will hang in some of the hands of some people on this land. That's what I believe. Thank you.
Praise the Lord.
Hallelujah.
I think I also think that we should have a discussion and a dialogue with the children or with the child, hear him or her out. It is not just enough to say that, and most people say this a lot, but it is not that true. Begay went to Harvard in 1974. He scored 1600 over 1600. He was too smart for them in Harvard, so he pulled out. Dell was at the University of Houston. In his first year, he said he was going to pull out, and he told his parents that, you know, he doesn't want to continue. He had a vision, and he gave them a promise that, let me go. If I did not succeed, then I'll come back. They struck a deal. So it wasn't as if because of education that they could not cope in their education. They were just too smart for the school. They know much more than what they are teaching them in school, and they pulled out. So there are two different things. And I also want Mr. Adesoye, we call it Adeshoye, where Jebus, but says Adesoye, it's okay. And I remember, I can't remember who now. I think it was Bola that said she wants to study something. He told me, and he said, he had a dialogue with her that we're here for empowerment. There's a reason why I brought you guys here. The course that you say you want to do, tell me, name 3 or 4 people. Maybe we should just allow him to shed more light on that. I can't really remember the story anymore. Mr. Adesoye, we can't hear you. Unmute yourself, sir.
Thank you for that second time invitation. Now, the case was that, we wanted my first daughter to be a medical doctor. That's what she told me she was going to be. She finished biological science, University of Maryland. And in her final year, she just came to me and said, look, Dad, doctors don't have life. I don't want to be a medical doctor anymore. I want to go for forensic science. And remember I said in my distant presentation that if I knew what I know now, there's a lot of things that I would have done differently. She told me I wanted to do forensics. I said, forensic what? I brought you guys here because I have the intention that you go back to Nigeria. So if you do forensic science, I don't know where you're going to work in Nigeria with forensic science. So I want you to do something that you will, anywhere you go in the four corners of the world, you can easily find a job. I said, but before we go ahead, tell me, why are you interested in forensics? She said, oh, I have passion for lab work. I have passion for research. Okay. Do you want to follow passion first? Or let's follow the money. If you follow the money and you start making your money, then you can use that your money to follow your passion. So it was a kind of dialogue between us. And when I wake up every morning, she was living in the basement. I would go to her and wake her up and say, if you are not doing medicine, I want you to go for pharmacy. If you don't do that, you want to follow your passion, to go get a job. I'm not going to put my time in that forensic science. When you finish forensic science and you want to go for pharmacy, come back to me. But I'm going to take my car from you. You're going to rent it. All those systems, anyway, it worked for me, but it was just a coincidence because I don't think that will work any longer because she was also more or less new in the country like myself. She has not mingled with a lot of the people in this country that she will have told me, no, I will go and rent my house and you will lose the child. At the end of the day, you might lose her. So I don't recommend that approach. But what I recommend is try to find out why the child wants to do what he or she wants to do. And if you have anything to counsel him or her on, wisely give them that counsel and give them reasons and assure them that you'll be very supportive of whatever they want to do or what they want. That's the kind of things they want to hear. They don't want you to say, you must do what I want to do. I want you to do. No. Thank you. That's the end in my presentation. I forgot to mention something to you about funding college. Let me just use this opportunity. I saw one of my children use that in University of Maryland. And that's why I didn't pay for him. I was only paying tuition. There's something they call RA program, resident assistant. That's that's a lot of money. It's about 16,000 every year that I didn't have to pay because he got into that RA program. So if we have any of our kids in the University of Maryland, they can take interview for that and it saves you a lot of money to get into that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I do have one question to ask before we kind of end this program. I know a lot of us have kids that are in middle school, elementary school, and I believe the first speaker mentioned something about AP classes. Can you just, one of the speakers, can you just explain to some of us that don't know what AP classes are?
I think today
Pastor David talked about
and how they can start, how a child in elementary school can start preparing for those AP classes.
I think AP classes for my kids, they started them in high school. They started them in high school, and AP stands for Advanced Placement classes. And I think maybe in our presentations we missed out something. We didn't the distinction between advanced placement classes, dual credits, and then dual enrollment. That was one area I think we might have glossed over. Advanced placement classes, it's good on your transcript. It's usually, I think, I'm not sure they do it in middle schools, but I think it's high schools that I know that my kids did advanced placement classes in. They are just basically college classes, college level coursework while you are in high school. And then you have the AP exam. And depending on your score, I think it's scored between 1 and 5, 5 being the best. And if you get a 5, if you are going to particular kinds of schools, a lot of public schools will give you credit for that class, which would save you that. And also, so that's one way of also helping in funding. And also, if you have the opportunity to do the dual enrollment while you're in high school, you're also in some community college taking a class. Now, those ones look very good on your transcript. And also, the colleges might give you credit, depending on the type of college. I'll give you an example. My son took expository writing in Bowie State University while he was still in Bowie High School. Now, when he was going up to college, Rutgers would not take, Rutgers insisted that he should do expository writing there. But they were still willing to give us credit for that he has taken. So it removed one of the electives. But advanced placement started off in high school, depending on the opportunities you have in your high school. I don't know whether any of the other speakers can shed more light from their experience. Maybe it's possible to do it from middle school. I didn't have that experience.
Well, I guess my question is, I mean, I'm aware that that is only in high school that you can do AP classes, but not everybody qualifies for AP classes. So I just wanted everyone to understand that it's very important. You know, it's good to have those AP classes because it kind of helps towards college, but you can't just enter or you can't just get into AP classes in high school. Your children have to be doing very well in
middle school. I see.
Middle school before, so they need to be in like more advanced
English classes, math classes.
Exactly.
You can't just go into AP calculus if you haven't. Yes.
Exactly.
Okay, quickly, how does this one compare to this program they call baccalaureate?
I can speak on that. I was in high school, I was part of the International Baccalaureate program. So people can do one of two things. You can either take selective IB courses, just like you can pick any AP courses you want to take, or you can be in the IB program, which is 2 years, your junior and senior year, and you pick like 3 lower level classes and 3 higher level classes that you then take 6 exams at the end of the year, at the end of your senior year. So for me, I picked like math, biology, and Spanish for my higher levels, and I forgot my lower levels. But it's the same kind of program as AP, except the testing scale is from 1 to 7 instead of 1 to 5. And you can also get college credits for those classes, just like AP classes. I think the one main difference is that AP, there's no like AP curriculum you have to take. If you're in the IB 2-year program, you have to write I think it's like 4,000 or 6,000 word paper at the end of your senior year. And it's way more structured. I think Richard Montgomery High School offers it. Good Counsel, I went to Good Counsel High School. Good Counsel offers it. And I'm sure there are other schools in Maryland that offer the program as well. And just to touch on the earlier question about the ACT and SAT. So I took the SAT my 10th grade spring because I have an older brother. He's 1 year older than me. So my parents just made us take it at the same time. I'm very happy because I did not do too hot on the exam in 10th grade, but because of that, I was able to just drill down on the areas that I was weak. I took it again 11th grade fall, and I didn't have to take it again till I was applying for a school. So it definitely was less stressful than my friends who waited until junior spring to take it for the first time, because by then you're freaking out, and then you only have one more chance to take it in senior fall, coupled with your classes, coupled with your applications. It's just too much stress. So I highly, highly, highly recommend either taking the SAT or the ACT your 10th grade so that you can see where you really need to work on.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So thank you everyone for that. Pastor, can you lead us in a closing prayer?
Yes, thank you so very much. That's you, Adewale. I want to thank every one of you, Mr. You Adewale, Mr. Jide Adeshoyi, Mr. Leke Adeshoyi Prince, Mr. Pastor Wilson Adewale, Pastor David Eleshimogun, and host of other people, Pastor Sam Ore and Pastor Mrs. Adebayo Odessa. I cite you, who else?
Thank you, sir.
Pastor Debbie Ore, and host of other people. We want to say thank you from the depth of our hearts. Pastor Olashore, we cite you as well. We want to say the Lord bless every one of us. I've heard people saying, oh, it's Pastor Abe that put this together. We have in our church directorate. They put this together. Pastors only come in and put 1 or 2 dots and section it, and it becomes a product. So it's not just about Pastor Abe alone, it's about the entire church and the workers directorate. Thank you so very much, every one of us. The Lord bless you all. The Lord keep you. The Lord continually shine his face upon every one of us.
Amen.
All of our children, they will do well. This shall be their lot in the mighty name of Jesus.
Amen.
And every of our desires towards each of our children, they will come to pass.
Amen.
In the name of Jesus.
Amen.
All our children, they will go higher in life.
Amen.
In the name of Jesus Christ. According to the order of Jesus Christ, the Bible says that the boy Jesus grow in grace, he grow in stature, he find favor with God and favor with men. Every one of our children, they will grow in grace.
Amen.
They will find favor with men,
Amen.
favor with God.
Amen.
In the mighty name of Jesus Christ.
Amen.
Every one of our parents here tonight will be enlarged. We shall be increased.
Amen.
In the name of Jesus. It shall be well with every one of us.
Amen.
Like we said earlier, this program continues tomorrow. You can log into Zoom and also watch on YouTube. And if you have chance to come to the church, but we have limited number of space, so we prefer people to do Zoom and also do YouTube. And we are going to have Pastor Wilson Adewale live tomorrow. We'll have more questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
God bless you all.
Thank you, sir.
In fellowship.
The grace of
our Lord
Jesus Christ, the love of
God,
the
which of the Holy Spirit,
be with us now,
forevermore. Amen.
Surely,
goodness and mercy shall
follow us all the days of
our lives.
And we
shall dwell in the house of the Lord
forever.
Amen. Before we all disperse, can Deacon Oyewale, can you please project our declaration of faith so that we can all recite together?
One second.
Diverse sorts of data, things like SQL, Python, C++, maybe even Perl or JavaScript. You also need to know about statistics. That's another major element of
we normally proclaim this declaration before we share the grace. Just occurred to me that we didn't do that. So let's have that and we recite that together.
Yeah, I'm looking for a place.
And this program continues, and we'll hope to be doing this on a quarterly basis. By the grace of God, next time we'll have our dear sister, I believe she's on her way back from Nigeria, Ayoje Oseni, and some other people. So by the end of June, we can have this program again.
Okay, let's go.
We are of David family, a place where dreams come true and where God exceeds expectation, a place of encouragement, strength,
honor, and
dignity.
Where
The
the light of the world, where seated upon the hilltop, we cannot be hidden.
The eyes of the Lord are upon us, and his ears are open unto our prayers.
We walk in power,
Power,
miracle, favor, love, and unity.
and unity. There is no
There's no
strife or
strife or
division
division
among
among
us.
us. We come forth with silver and gold, and there is no
There is
feeble
no
one
feeble
among
one
us.
among us.
Concerning myself, I declare with audacity that I am blessed and highly favored by God. God's favor surround me like a shield, and that favor opens doors
that no man
I can shut, and shut doors that no man can open. The
favor
favor of God upon my
life
life
changes
and
and
alter
regulations
regulations
and
and
policies
policies as
necessary to
necessary.
bring me to the fullness of God.
Define purpose for my life. I declare emphatically that I am strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. I will fulfill destiny. I will not be stranded in life. The purpose of God for my life shall be accomplished. I am strong spiritually, emotionally, intellectually, mentally, physically, financially, and there is no weakness in any area of my life. I will be 1,000 times blessed than I am today. I receive what I have declared and praise God for it. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Praise the Lord.
Hallelujah.
Praise the living Jesus.
Hallelujah.
See us all tomorrow. God bless you all.
God bless you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, sirs. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Pastor Olusoya.
Thank God.
I hope this was recorded, though.
Yes.
So where can we get the recording?
Yeah, that will be through the church office, Pastor Olusoya.
Yeah, Pastor Olusoya.
I think he's off, so I will let him know.
Okay. I appreciate it. Thank you very much, sir.
All right, no problem.
Sir, shall I cite you?
Pastor Shegun. Pastor Shegun.
Pastor Barua, God bless you.
God bless you, man. God bless
This is a wonderful program.
We thank God.
Thank
Amen.
God.
We
Thank
thank
God.
God.
Thank God. Bye.
Bye.
Take care.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. We're waiting for everybody to sign off so that we
Waiting for
can.
everyone to sign off, right?
Yeah, so that I can stop the recording.
Okay.
Okay. Probably
Right.
some of them just left
Left.
the system. So
Yes.
yeah, I think we can sign off. Okay.
All right. See
Okay.
you tomorrow.
I think Sam is the Brabilo, right?
Yes. Well, there are two of them.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Pastor Sam
And maybe Sister Ebon's husband.
Odun is
Okay. All right. See you tomorrow.
Okay, so tomorrow. Thank you.
All right. Good job.
Thank God.